As we get ready for game number 1.
Look at the bodies, it's a graveyard down here.
Can he get the double? Yes, he does. Verhoeven going for the triple kill to kick off the ALGS playoffs in London.
He's going to be hitting some big
Oh
shots.
my goodness, the damage.
The Graver shot finally landing.
Guard is going to win this game.
Ascend will pick up the win.
Oh, he's like a monster. He punches him.
Are you kidding me?
He's on main.
It should work out. Peekaboo. Let's go with the Graver. He's going to go in and finish off the damage as well.
Setting a world record.
23 kills. $1 million is on the line today. It is a shooter
I'm gonna move forward.
to become the champions here in London.
You want the money?
You get the damage here and it's done. TSM up in the skies. How's got down with the hammers. London belongs to TSM.
All right, hope you're ready. Let's do this, brothers.
Get ready, moving up.
There is nothing quite like that video, Dia, that reminds me of just how crazy a LAN can get. But before we can talk about all things playoffs and championships, the Apex Legends Global Series Year 4 starts here. Well, at least for North America, because, you know, I'm Firetip, that's Dia, and you've spent the entire day this morning casting EMEA. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good. In fact, I've just been sat here the whole time. The broadcast for this morning ended for EMEA, and I sat like this, hands folded in my lap, and now I've woken up again. So here we are.
Congratulations. I'm glad you're awake. Thank you so much for joining us. But for those of you at home, that's right, get excited because welcome back to another crazy, chaotic year. I watched EMEA, actually, a good chunk of it, and congratulations to our teams that have already moved on from APAC North and APAC South, Play Outside, MDYB, and then no days off today. But North America, we have one team that needs to slot themselves in that. But let's go ahead and look at the season overview. For those of you who may be new to Apex Legends Competitive, we are kicking things off with this beautiful overview. Preseason qualifiers are starting now from November to December 23rd. That means we are in that kind of diamond all the way to the left with so much ahead of us.
And the way preseason qualifiers work, as you'll notice that they are substantially ahead of when we actually start the Pro League, is that we've got 4 weeks of them. And after those 4 weeks, the winners of each of those individual match days will go on to qualify for Pro League. However, throughout the course of this, you've also got teams accumulating points, and at the very end of this TIFF, we'll send another 4 teams onwards just by points ranking alone for those teams that have managed to make it continually but not actually stand at the top of each of our individual match days.
And I love that it will kind of commend those teams that acquired enough points and have been through the gauntlet consistently to get there. But for the teams that can just go ahead and start here first weekend and take that win, knowing that your Pro League debut will happen, or maybe you're working your way back to get into Pro League, whatever your journey is, I'm all excited to see who's going to make their way over there. So let's go ahead and look at that Pro Qualifier 1, because we already sent a team over this morning, but there's a lot of teams that will be kind of playing here today, Dia. And I'm just curious, did you catch any of the semifinals and some of those earlier rounds?
I caught some of the semifinals yesterday. I was making some nice dinner, so I had it on during the course of that, and in between trying to figure out what on earth a bechamel sauce was, and the match days, I managed to get a pretty good idea of where our teams are at. And actually, if you check in on Battlefy as well, you can also catch up with a lot of the scores that teams were able to put up yesterday in their games. So we'll get a chance to check in with our teams in just a second, but the scores, again, for those of you who may be new to competitive Apex, are going to be brought up shortly. This is exactly how you're able to accumulate points throughout the 6 games that we're going to play today. 12 points for a win, all the way down in descending order until after you place 15th, you don't get any points. But there is a way to make up for that, or even bolster your performance once you get a little bit higher on the leaderboards, and that's via eliminations. So taking people out of the game, picking up kills along the way is what really makes the difference.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, my favorite way to see those points get racked up is by those eliminations. And one team in particular that we'll touch base on later, but 105 points, breaking 100 points in the semis, absolutely just running at teams. So we'll see how that goes. I can only imagine they're going to try to do something like that today, or they might change it up. But let's go ahead and look at those maps and see where we will be starting out on. Games 1 through 3, World's Edge, the tried and true Dia, but the Storm Point changes. Those made me so excited. I know previously to the pro season qualifiers here, we had kind of discussed the changes to Storm Point and how it would affect competitively. And now I'm kind of seeing what's that going to look like for North America.
Yeah, it's very exciting, and we'll sort of get a slow introduction to Year 4 as a result of us starting on World's Edge, because here, the only difference is really going to be Conduit and some very small balance changes. And I say small in the sense that, well, some of them are more impactful than others. For the most part, they're not changing how you play the game entirely. So Conduit is going to be the big focus as to how North American teams are using her in the finals of the preseason qualifiers during World's Edge. And once we get on over to Storm Point, then we get into those big shifts that you allude to, where POIs change the whole game.
Ooh, and those POIs, those are going to be really eluding. Let's go ahead and look at, the match day groups, what you guys are all here for. So if you're in chat, please let me know who you are rooting for. There's a lot of teams that are competing here today that have been throughout the journey of the weekend. It's kind of a gauntlet when you think about it, going on, making sure that you've got the mental fortitude, being consistent through all the different rounds. But so far, these are the 20 teams that will be vying for potentially the point spots at the end of those Pro League qualifiers, or for the coveted top spot that will get them that auto qualified. But immediately, there are a lot of names that stand out to me. Elevate Gaming, Drop In Gaming, Redeem, even TSMX, and Amigo, former Pro League experience. A lot of these players throughout have Pro League experience or Challenger Circuit experience, but is there anyone in particular that catches your eyes?
I think that it's only fair, since you alluded to them, that we talk about what Drop In Gaming did yesterday. Because it was the curse of the... I'm going to restart that sentence. The curse of Challenger Circuit and oftentimes preseason qualifiers, that you do really well in semis, and then you sort of fade out in finals. So knowing that, we're still going to talk about drop-in gaming, but be aware, we may actively be cursing them, or they may have already cursed themselves by performing so well in the semifinals.
Don't say that, Dia. We can't do that. But alas, we do have 9 lives. I was looking into them. Nukes as well. You've got Onmu, former 100 Thieves player on that roster. But this is just going to be absolutely, I was like perusing the internet and I was looking at seeing what people were saying. And they were like, I kind of want some team that's relatively unknown. Some unknown fraggers, a legend that rises to the occasion to make it through to Pro League. I just want to shake things up at this point.
That is, exactly what's going to happen today. And if you want people to come out of nowhere and pick up wins and head on over to the Pro League, check out Emia's stream from this morning, because it's exactly what happened with no days off. Not only winning from a stylistic standpoint, but picking up the first place spot without actually ever winning a game in a very strange series of events. Now, as we prepare to pop into our first game of World's Edge, you highlighted a few teams here, and I actually want to go over one of them specifically, the team Nukes, James Fearless, Prodigy Aces, and Onmu. You mentioned Onmu as being part of 100 Thieves earlier. Onmu is really interesting to me here, and it's because it is odd to see a regional champion in the Pro League qualifiers, the preseason qualifiers. The fact that Onmu is here is really fascinating and should be terrifying everyone in the lobby.
That is what I would assume, but it is game number 1. We are in that drop ship, and now we will have to see, will a former regional champion be able to earn that spot back into Pro League? You can see where that first initial circle is going to be. We've got a southern zone. So for our teams like Evolution that is heading up towards Climatizer, that's going to be Yuris, Voodoo, and Yasto. Now talk about someone that was former Pro League, played on Torrent with RKN and Rambo. Long behold, so many people have been waiting to see him get that competitive nature back into force.
I am glad to see Yuris return, especially because he's got a lot of style. He's a very big personality, almost in the sort of Mondi ways that people remember from from their games on stage over at Lands that we alluded to earlier. However, right in the center of the map, we've already got a fight starting off. Harvester contest from EMEA over to today. This time the BR Kittens hold the center and are pushing on outwards. Not a whole lot of gear at their backs, but it doesn't seem like the squad that landed alongside them is feeling too confident either, because they're not on the high ground anymore. BR Kittens running Fuse for the moment, have good control of the high ground. We'll see what they do with it.
Fuse is great, especially for that early game contest. But my thing is, there was also another one all the way down at launch site. That was going to be TSMX going down, losing out on their initial contest. But here's the deal. We always talk about how BR Demons evolved and you don't chow the BR Demons. Well, this is a different roster, but what do we do about the BR Kittens? Like, they're getting chowed, bro.
They are. They seem to be doing fine. So we'll see if we have to actually do anything about it. For the moment, it seems like everything is fair and will be all right. However, unfortunately for Oblivion, they've had to move out of their initial drop spot with not a whole lot of loot. They are, again, going to be another one of our teams running Fuse, and this isn't something that we saw over in EMEA this morning, but Fuse still exceptionally powerful, especially for harassing other teams in zone and occasionally, situationally, taking fights on the edge. But you really do want to put yourself in a position where you can harass other squads and get the value out of Fuse that things like the ability to evo people up with the Knuckle Cluster provides. That's not a position that we're currently seeing a lot of Fuses in, and granted, it is still early into the game.
That's true. It's only a matter of time before we kind of figure out and see a lot of these legend compositions kind of get fleshed out. But there was one right there for LBJ, that Catalyst paired with Conduit. A lot of those we were talking about prior to the qualifiers and the scrims, and would we see those two come together? And 100% they are. And, you know, we'll see how they fare.
Well, Pen 5 actually having a really interesting take on the meta right now. They're running Watson alongside Catalyst and Bangalore. This is something that you would have seen a lot of over at Champs, since Watson, Catalyst, Bangalore ended up being I'll say soft counter to a lot of other things that were present in the meta at the moment. But for right now, Watson might get a surprising amount of value. You are missing out on a little bit more of the mobility and especially verticality that something like Horizon provides.
Yeah, but on World's Edge, I feel like that double controller comp would be a little more vital than maybe on Stormpoint. But hey, we'll just have to wait to see. Nine Lives, you know, this is another team that initially I had no clue about, and I was doing my research. This org just formed. This is like former X most hated roster, and got picked up by Nine Lives Esports just in November, right ahead of these qualifiers, and, you know, looking to make a name. But this team, this is the team that hit 100 plus points just in a semifinals lobby. It was completely dominative, and you got Crook, right? Crook, former Atlanta Premier, kind of made the rounds, but he originally was their anchor back in the day, and now playing Bangalore should be quite interesting to see what he brings to the table, because not only is Stunny and Karma well versed, Stunny, I mean, he's competed since 2020. This is just a dominating team.
Pen 5 starting to push up on the truck right now, where SKTT2 have just lost a member. I think that at close range, this might favor them, but Pen 5 are making sure there's no sight lines, no clear way out of here. Trevstack's going to be full thirsted. Kimbo's just gone down, and this should be another kill going the way of Pen 5.
Gonna be really interesting, but I mean, look, if you're running Hambino on the Watson, being able to get into these RVs and kind of fence it up and restabilize in that engagement, it's not bad. You can see they've already got the ring information. They're kind of playing just inside that next zone. It's a little aggressive, but still reserved in the fact that you're taking your space and you're holding it.
That's exactly what this composition is meant to do. When we think about double controllers, especially with Catalyst and Watson, taking space, holding it, as you said, is exactly, it's the basics of this composition. It's what Pen 5 should be doing consistently, and the fact that they're able to do it not just in the truck, but also in Lava Siphon is a symptom of the fact that there aren't a whole lot of other teams prioritizing where they are. A lot more of our squads have chosen to move further south into areas like Dome and Stacks, and where Elevate currently find themselves is not exactly a zone prediction spot. However, what it is a, hey, we're pretty close to zone. Let's see who we can pick off as they try and rotate in through a more passive area.
That is going to be the smarter strategy for a lot of these early fights, but The thing is, like, I was assuming that we would have a multitude of teams left in those final zones. In EMEA, at one point, I think there was like 4 squads end game. And that was something that I wasn't ready to see. So I'm hoping that in North America, maybe it'll like kind of be the more primer mid-game fights. But Purple Slushy, they are no strangers to engaging, and they want to take this fight quickly with the L-Star back on the ground. It absolutely has been such a staple to grab. You can see they just got a barricade, and they've already got one knock going for the Thirst. But that's what happens when you go for the Thirst to maybe get that armor squat. Pluto gonna lose your life in the process.
Zaki one clips Pluto for the moment, but gets it answered right back, and the boys go down to Purple Slushy on a decisive push. That very quickly paced fight was in large part the result of the early knock having happened, and then several just really quick one clips for now. The fact that it's able to happen isolated and that quickly means that nobody has the opportunity to third party it, even though we're all sat in launch site, which is a very claustrophobic place to be.
Ooh, but now that you get a look at the map, that fight that Purple Slushy just took makes so much more sense, right? Not only are they vying to take out and get those elimination points, but you're vying for that late game spot that is so prime, because BR Kittens, they're not going to extend out and third party that because they don't want to lose their building either. So think of all the teams that are going to be rotating in. You look at Chatham as prime, LBJ, that are going to have to filter in through kind of that western choke point should they decide to kind of fight their way around and maybe go in from the northern side of launch site. These zones, Dia, I mean, you can akin to this. They are atrocious if you are not already in launch site.
They're very difficult to play, and it's interesting to see Oblivion and Nukes on the southernmost side of launch site as well, and Oblivion even further south than actually launch site even extends. A big part of that is going to be the safety it provides, with not a whole lot of other teams getting to rotate down past there, and hopefully the ability to make it into at least 15th. With the way the zone is pulling right now, taking a look at the top left corner of your screens, it does seem unlikely that Oblivion specifically will get a whole lot of value out of their spot, but Nine Lives, on the other hand, have taken a more active position, a lot like Elevate did earlier. Their hope certainly one of picking up KP as other teams are forced to funnel in.
Not a bad strat. I noticed they kind of elected to play Catalyst today as well. I'm not sure if that was a change from Storm Point to World's Edge, but they were running Bang, Horizon, and Bloodhound for some of the semifinals yesterday, which can akin to be a little more aggressive as well. But a little poke fighting here with the triple take. Just trying to farm up that blue to match the teammates' purple shields. But just honestly, scouting, calling, you're in a prime position. There's no need to kind of push the issue. But I'm a little worried about this fight here that you can see Flux, Eureece kind of on top of each other. Yasto already down.
Eureece going to try and hit the res. Unfortunate. Gets dropped on, and now half health. Vudo's putting up a lot of work, but has been unable to find a knock just yet. Almost manages to trade one, but remember, Eureece is half HP, and this should be an easy finish. Evolution, go down.
That is really, really unfortunate to find yourself at the bottom of this bridge. I love the dropping of the shield swap to kind of get back to full form as quickly as possible, because you know anything about Apex Legends on World's Edge, there's a third party. As soon as they hear of that engagement, you've got the high ground. They should essentially be able to bully the team on the low ground, and it should be a clean fight for them as they kind of navigate that rotation further into zone. Now, granted, they could just decide to hit the geyser and maybe just go deeper, but I don't think that's quite safe either.
And right now, you got to work your way through Hanging Around, who certainly heard this. They were previously just about to mirror Elevate on the way in through this southeastern rotate, but now sitting right above, actually are likely going to have to take this fight. The ring no longer making it super forgiving for you to walk back into zone. Hanging Around, choose to do it anyway, trying to make a low-risk play, but let's not forget, it's not like there aren't teams on the other side of this red.
Yeah, this is going to be really tough, honestly, because now you have to filter through the tunnel and potentially face off against a multitude. But we are talking about this chokehold in particular to get to launch site. We knew that there were going to be multiple teams trying to make their way through a great dark veil to kind of isolate that line of sight and protect them, forcing other teams to kind of vie for another rotation. You can see Redeem in the distance. Now Chatham is prime, popping the Bloodhound ult and letting the L-Star fry. You see Flesh. Smokes are going to help just a little bit, but we'll have to wait and see.
Now that's a free ultimate that was just expended on the low ground. A little bit of damage gets thrown in. Redeem are forced to use Catalyst ult, a crucial tool they now don't have. We got other fights breaking out, however, and likely more teams going down as Los Licks start going crazy, even in the smoke. It is still a 1-for-1 knock with a Horizon ult in front. They've lost control of the fight for right now, and Chickus, who was anchoring, has nowhere to protect them from because every side is besieged.
Yeah, the chaos that just ensued. LBJ, Los Licks, and PBV in the midst of the brawl will also fall, but 7Z wants to kind of clean up that mess. We talked about the third parties that were happening on the bridge as they kind of collapsed. Well, now it's going to keep going ever so slightly. You can see Hambino and Pen 5, the roster, kind of scooping the outside, right? There are teams that are going to be playing in launch site heavy zone, right? Just kind of waiting towards the end to get their eliminations. But these teams on the edge, not only do you have to vie for position, but you have to get as many as you can. And Blake's here, well, some damage, no elimination, so hopefully the teammates were able to snag them.
Now, Pen 5 and 7Z are going to have to run alongside each other. This zone will push them both in at the same time. The evac tower, a crucial way to keep this from being a game-ending situation, but it's being shot out from multiple angles. Do 7Z even make it? Almost they do, but Tyrone falls in zone, and that's a dead Tyrone. It's a two-player team now.
That's a GG go next for the teammate Trippin. Tyrone also going to get knocked or Trippin goes down. Tyrone went for the evac tower, and Drop-In Gaming, you know who's waiting? They are holding the edge of ring, and they are going to capitalize on this moment. Crook able to get a solid Arc Star knock onto one, and this should be easy pickings for them.
7Z go down, and Drop-In Gaming gets to continue gatekeeping from above. Now this push from the low ground is not necessary, but Drop-In Gaming, having found a crack, could still get aggressive towards the north end of launch site.
This is very similar from my understanding of how they rolled through the semifinals. Now we're expending that Bangalore ult from Crook. A little smoke and dodge, trying to hold out the team just in front of them. Now granted, there is just over a minute before that circle will start to collapse, albeit they do have to focus on their rotation as well because of how many teams were inside of launch site. You have to start running the risk of, are these 3 eliminations worth my late game and the potential for more? But this team will have to go. Pen 5 has to go through. Co, Trev Stacks, that's gonna be SKTT2. Hopefully, I don't know what the abbreviation for that is, if there even is one, but you know, it's fine.
South Korea Telecom T2, Team 2.
Is that legit?
No, that's not actually the team they're
Oh.
playing under, but that's what they are pretending to play under. And I know that I shouldn't know that, but also, when else is that knowledge going to be useful? I had to throw it out.
That is absolutely perfect, and I knew you were a fountain of knowledge, Dia, so glad you could be here with me. But Pen 5, having that pylon and everything there to regen the shields, Hambino putting all of the pressure down, already able to get a knock onto 2 members of SKT. It should be a finesse right here to clean this up. My only worry is when you had Drop-In Gaming just north of you, being able to gatekeep this a little bit more, you can see that the Dark Veil has been expended, and now the collapse ensues.
Unfortunately, as you say, Drop-In Gaming just have the run-of-the-mill towards this south, or rather north, end of zone. They were the ones that held high ground, and they should be the ones to be able to gatekeep as more squads are now forced to run in. It's a continual risk for anybody who was playing the north end of this ring to now make their way in through a bunch of open territory, and Carter, thankfully, is the one to take that risk for now, at the very least, and it seems to be going all right. Catalyst walls being expended, one crucially up across the bridge, takes Pen 5 forward, but hanging around, turn out, wanting to clear their back.
Oh, hanging around, the dual Dark Veil splitting the open area, but it's Drop-In Gaming who held the north, who are sitting in a prime position, who decided, hey, we didn't want to hang around here, and now it is literally like shooting fish in a barrel. 9 lives will also fall, and the commending on Drop-In Gaming to just put all of the pressure as teams scurry about.
We're running a little bit low on ammo, so they are going to have to drop and finish off a few of these kills. One of them left behind the knockdown shield right below, and will be S2. who go out in 8th place. Drop in still holding on to the high ground, but crucially not the inside of this building. There are other teams coexisting with Drop In Gaming, and somebody has to stop this rampage.
They shouldn't be able to just be free up here with the entire building behind them. Someone's gonna have to open that door. I'm looking at James Furious on Mu. What are y'all doing in there? Holding position. I love this.
This is what experience will tell you. Nukes know that for as much as Drop In Gaming are using up a lot of time, are getting a lot of kills, Nuke's job isn't to interrupt them, it's simply to win the game. And at this point, what you've really got to control is your exit off towards the south. And you start that by clearing out the teams that would otherwise disrupt you from behind. That's what Nukes are focused on right now. As Fuse Qs start to come in, Drop In Gaming are going to make themselves a problem. Will they be a big enough problem? Nukes has to fight them before leaving.
A little late game res coming back in, and there you get to see one of the beautiful changes that just dropped with the most recent season. You will get your guns back. You come back in with a purple shield, and for a moment there, we did see some kind of poke engagement between Nukes and Drop In Gaming. You can see the Dark Veil in the distance kind of navigating its way as we pull just a little bit further towards Dome, but this is that engagement. That wasn't inevitable, and some great damage off the rip, an incoming Arc Star. We need to dodge that, but we just have a minimal amount of time because this engagement will hold them up for rotating. They need to end this and end this now, but unfortunately, Onmu is going to fall, and Prodigy drops the smoke, trying to regain, but they cannot do it. Purple Slushy kind of throws their life in a way, only one able to make it out.
This is exactly the situation that Nukes was hoping to avoid, and Purple Slushy now just hoping that they get away with it, but unfortunately trying to mirror Drop In Gaming was well, it wasn't going to work out. It was a doomed mission. E8 see this fight happening, and it is very few squads that are left in this game. We are just about to come up on the final round, but Elevate know that they can just control this Catalyst wall and end the game here and now. Zach takes the wide swing with the Prowler. Elevate still have 2 to the now 1 of the squad before them, and it's up to Shubi to clutch it up. Carr gets reloaded, playing the knockdown shields for now, has the damage to do it, but Shubi needs to hit the 30-30. The hip fire isn't connecting, but he gets the last shot, and Elevate take the first game on World's Edge.
Shubi, one of the last remaining Bangalore maids, albeit Shiv earlier playing back in with the solo queue goats, and now Shubi finding success, taking map 1 alongside Zapto and Zach Mazer. Elevate, man, I know somewhere Clara is out there just absolutely screaming for Zach, so shout out to you, I see you.
And this is what, as much as we talked about Drop In Gaming, a roster that would have attracted a lot of attention for anybody who was jumping in and trying to figure out what exactly the preseason qualifiers were all about. A lot of these players, or rather 2 of them, very well known. Zach Mazer, who of course came up through C9, or has most recently rather been playing for C9 and is very well known for it, and Shubi, who was part of the terrifying squad Black Hand throughout many challenger circuits past, was picked up to this roster. Zap is a very new player in the sense of the pro spotlight, but is heralded as being one of those very mechanically talented folks that pops up every now and then and becomes a gift to the scene. So, them taking their first game, pretty good sign.
Yeah, that's actually really incredible, and I love that you mentioned that Shubi was back on the Black Hand, right? Like, that roster was so insane as it kind of ran the gauntlet of Challenger Circuit and throughout, and then even had kind of dabbled into like Pro League. But seeing it here, it just kind of meshes really well at the helm with Zach Mazer. So quite impressive, and I guess we will just kind of vibe and see how that goes. But not a bad start. Do we have standings by chance? I'm curious to see. We do? We do.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Elevate Gaming, 19 points. That's 7 eliminations with that 12th place. 12 points from first place. Drop In Gaming. Look, solid performance, honestly, to be able to make it out of that building by holding the outside and not losing their life, kind of like Nukes it on the inside, while able to pick up a good chunk of eliminations along the way. But it's also Pen 5 in that 3rd place with 12 points. That's pretty surprising to me.
Yeah, you know what? Pen 5 being able to pop in and just take a really nice 3rd place in this game, putting them even alongside Purple Slushy, is kind of funny because Purple Slushy really went through the gauntlet of Challenger Circuit last split, and Pen 5 didn't. They've been popping in and out of both Pro Play and Challenger Circuits for quite a long time, sort of on that line, on that fine line between content creation and pro play. The very fact that they're able to come in here and put up a position like that in the first game is, again, a good sign. However, it is just the first game, and as we learned in EMEA, as we've learned in challenger circuits and preseason qualifiers all around the world, first game, it may not be the determiner of everything. So we've got a lot to look forward to in the subsequent 2 games that are going to be played on World's Edge.
Ooh, I guess we're just beginning. But for teams like TSM X, BR Kittens, the teams that had those early contests, well, let's kind of go back to the drawing board and see what changes we might make. BR Kittens kind of disengaged a little bit from Harvester early and was able to acquire some points. But the thing about it is, we just know that you need to get as many points as possible. But a friendly reminder, if you just joined us in chat, the first place victor from today will get that auto qual spot to Pro League. But until then, to a quick break, and when we come back, we'll have match number 2. Welcome back, everyone, to the Apex Legends Global Series preseason qualifier number 1. I'm SpiderTip, that's Dia, and you just witnessed a monumental game 1 with Elevate Gaming taking home the W. Dia, welcome back. I mean, look, I'm enjoying these quick breaks so we can get right back into the action. Let me just tell you.
Yeah, it is really nice, and the good thing about it is that our players have very little downtime because, well, it's pretty late for some people over on the East Coast, but the unfortunate thing about it is that it doesn't give me nearly enough time to finish my notes from last game. So during the break, I just insta-mute and start typing everything. And we've gotten about halfway through, so hopefully I'll remember what happened at the start of the day by the end of the day.
I mean, you say start of the day, like we didn't just start our cast 30 minutes ago, but you actually were on EMEA literally 10 hours ago. I was tuning in between the main broadcast with you and Zephyr and then Nicewig as well, and I was just like pilfering through it, and then Nicewig's like, I have to go to the gym after this. Like, I cannot stream for the next 12 hours, and that is crazy, right? People from all over the world are watching this qualifier to see who is, and you mentioned East Coast, the timing. Yo, bro, it's like 9:30 p.m. for me. I popped an energy drink and I was like, I am usually in bed by now.
Yep. Yep, so you gotta do what you gotta. It's for passion, Tiff.
It's for
Passion
passion.
rules Apex Legends, and fortunately we'll get to see a little bit more of it, as we alluded to. We've got 2 more games on the OG World's Edge before we
Ooh.
pop on over to Storm Point, a map that is beloved by many, and also not beloved by many. It is, it's well worn, shall we say. So, plenty of time for teams to strut their stuff and run strategies that they've been working with for a very long time. I think notably, as we talked about, Drop In Gaming got to continue their momentum from yesterday, which is a little bit more difficult on maps like World's Edge, where finding a lot of kills can be difficult, but because a lot of teams bunkered up in launch site, we also saw teams that wanted to play the slow game benefit quite a bit. And Elevate, who landed over by the south, picked up a nice spot to play for the end game, ended up getting just that, a fantastic end game for themselves. With now a zone pulling us over to the north, this game is sure to change in many ways, but the strats that especially teams that have legacy players on them run should be remarkably similar.
Ooh, I kind of like that. You know, if we're going to showcase a southern zone, why not double down and get something that might pull slightly more towards that northwestern side? Elevate your map 1 winners, kind of splitting over towards Big Mod and Stacks. I like that. That's going to have plenty of loot for them, but they will have maybe the furthest journey of those to the next. But let's tune back into that Harvester contest over here with BR Kittens, Arcology, electing to grab that fuse once again here on Oblivion. And that's just so entirely necessary for that early game contest.
We've got another fight happening already as TS Mechs fight for Thermal Station. Oblivion gonna get a nice tag with the Knuckle Cluster. That allows room for 2 shields to be scouted and dealt damage to, so winning by just a little bit this early game battle, but they've got to watch their left, and Arcology certainly has got that on lock. React doesn't get to play Apex Legends anymore, and Oblivion get to kick things off real nicely with a great flank from Blinkser to cut off a retreat. Unfortunately, now isolated on the low ground. Need a little bit of time to pop a bat, let the rest of Oblivion push up, and another tag with the Knuckle Cluster is devastating. Arcology doesn't even have to pop out to kill the last member of BR Kittens.
No, he literally just zoned that off with the Knuckle Cluster. So impressive, because you think Blinkser on the low ground wasn't able to get back up there, so they had to throw it down. But you mentioned TSMX fighting over Thermal Station. Talos already down. Enemigo pushing towards the issue, able to get that trade, maintaining that health, thankfully to the Radiant transfer from Conduit. It makes things so much easier for them, and LBJ will be eliminated. 3 elimination points will be had. This is a much better start than map number 1 for them. We said they were going back to the drawing board, and here they are, victorious.
Yeah, and as another benefit to running Conduit as well, you're basically instantly reset. As soon as you get the singular member up, a quick shield swap on them, everybody else has their shields regened already, and we've got an interesting play going on elsewhere on the map. SKTT2. I hesitate to call this ratting because nobody walks through these corridors, so I'm going to call it sneaking as they move on up through Countdown.
A little sneaky. Look, I looked into this roster, and Trev Stacks himself, his bio, when I was reading it, it says future pro FPS gamer currently training to be a human aimbot on Kovac. You know, he's M&K, wants to hold the torch for the fallen M&K brothers. So as an M&K player myself, I, am now a fan.
Yeah, I mean, at least you know they work hard. When you spend time in Kovacs and you're flexing Kovacs, you know that you're a terrifying individual to face up against. I wouldn't want to do it, and well, fortunately, I get to just watch and talk about how very cool it is. The other team that I did want to highlight at the start of the day, but didn't quite get to, is Redeem, who did not have a fantastic opener to the day, but are a team to watch nonetheless, and part of that is because the innate talent on this roster. Voski and Golden have both come back and partnered up with Z Davis, and Z Davis, not just for his talent, but for the comeback story that's followed this player. Yeah, some of you will remember, especially if you're fans of the Challenger Circuit, that this was a player who was a Challenger Circuit aficionado, was likely going to continue the run, eventually make it into PL, got into a car crash, couldn't play the game for ages, couldn't use his hands, and now is back after having learned controller, and I imagine recovered to make their re-entry into Pro League, something that Pen 5 is fighting hard to do for the moment as well, in a long, protracted engagement that they seem to be losing control of. A double push onto Chase Mob, but a decent amount of damage thrown back. Chase Mob's going to go down, but Presley finishes off Chadamus Prime.
Okay, look, not only do they have the gold knockdown to kind of get that really quick reset, but can we talk about the damage that Chase Mob was able to put out while that team was pushing, right? The piercing veil to kind of section off that jump up right there. So immediately as that player crossed through the piercing veil, he was able to unleash them. It was a really cohesive front from that team. And I'm excited to see the reset go through there. But checking back in with Oblivion over here, Arcology, Blinksters, and Akimbo kind of making their way ever so northward, which I think a lot of people, if you start thinking of, hey, is this pulling towards Skyhook, then we need to get to Skyhook. But you can see a couple of teams have called Trials home now.
Yeah, Los Leaks up at the top right now have a great place to play. And Oblivion, even if they don't make it all the way into Trials, can still play Raven in the surrounding area as well, gatekeeping other teams like Pen 5, who we know are right behind them. With a quick evac tower, however, it looks like Oblivion are headed elsewhere, all but for losing one member on their way. Looks like it's pretty unrecoverable. So they may be playing this one out as a duo, barring some miraculous crafting and or other banner recovery. Boys, however, over through Lava Siphon. Caught pretty late on the rotate, honestly, but I don't imagine anything needs to come of this.
No, I think if they just like bide their time, kind of heal up, push into the fray, we'll see how it goes. But for the boys, though, they're gonna have to, honestly, send it. I don't see them actually necessarily getting gate kept too atrociously, and they can kind of double down and maybe push up toward that northeastern side of it. Huh.
Yeah, there's no rush.
Yeah.
Boys have Crafter, they've got Mats, and they have no desire to fight, which, fair enough. I wouldn't either.
You're allowed to do that here. Take it to the end game, or just get crazy, and just like TSMX here on the left is run into 9 lives. So curious to see, because as you can see, Enemigo very, very low on the HP. Laser not having much shield allowed to him, but as we go to take Dorito, you hear the shotgun going off. Black hole in answer, but when push comes to shove, a Wope has found himself inside. A good reinforcement of that door, the swarm, and just like that, it's over before it even started, really.
Now, 9 Lives play that fight really well, but what really impressed me in the moment was a Wope showcasing why Catalyst, despite the nerfs that have come for in the most recent season, is still extraordinarily strong. Being able to, on a moment, seal off a doorway and keep yourself safe for a reset makes this fight so much easier for 9 Lives because they do not lose a member. Even had they been third-partied, it's feasible. They could have kept fighting without too much of a hitch in their plans. Now, granted, nobody's around them, but they've got time to change that.
It's quite impressive. You know, this team that got 10th in the 2023 championship LCQ, I've been keeping an eye on them, but we'll see how it goes. Will they be able to make their Pro League journey happen? But as we get a good look at where that zone is pulling for the teams that have made their way towards Skyhook, good calls for them. Elevate. You know, we used to say that certain teams are just allergic to the ring. Well, Elevate, they are surely taking their time getting as much information as humanly possible before they decide to vie for spot. We just heard that survey beacon get scanned. Likelihood of it being by Elevate, probably, or Team Yuri's kind of scouting on the outskirts of Skyhook. That'll be an interesting rotate for them.
South of the map, for those of you who are keeping track, boys have negative rotated from outside of the zone to further outside of the zone and are moving their way over to thermal. So I'm very interested to see what the rest of the game holds for them. I don't think it's a bad move, but it's certainly one that delays your ability to interact with and take control of your own fate. We'll see how it works as Onmu, Fearless, and Prodigy make their way into, hopefully, Skyhook. Maybe they hang out in the cave, but this exit is going to be really tough for them. Should you commit to entering this cave, the likelihood that you leave, pretty low.
This is always that tunnel, that choke point on that southern side of Skyhook that people always keep their eye on. It is a very tough rotate, especially when the majority of the teams have already found themselves in Skyhook. And yes, there's a couple that are lurking amidst. You've got 9 lives here electing to hit that crafting, and that's great. Make sure you have your shields crafted as high as you can. Plenty of bats. Laser has 2, which, you know, I would like more. I would feel comfortable with more, especially if we're gonna battle our way into Skyhook. But a high ground here, overlooking some things. They can play it just for a bit longer. As you can see, it is going to pull them off that into Skyhook a little more further.
Got a little ways left until they've got a drop, but at this point, even if you don't have next ring scan, Los Leaks have to know that they will give up this high ground eventually. An evac tower is preferable, and fortunately, Gyozi has one to take control of your fate a little bit and hopefully get a spot that actually allows you to play out in a continually high ground position. The next zone pulling us almost directly into the center of Skyhook gives you the opportunity to pick your poison when it comes to what rooftop or very nearly rooftop you're going to play, depending on whether you're over at the train station or dead center.
It's gonna be tough though. I'd imagine a lot of teams are gonna be looking to coexist, and should they pick to play the roof that someone's already inhabited, I think that's fair for late game. As you can see, this actually is a very terrible zone, Dia. I am looking at this and I don't like it, but I will say that maybe it's because I was hyping up SKT that they just have prime positioning. That building, I would not be surprised if someone tried to fight them for it. But this is the issue, right? Elevate have made their way from Overlook and have pushed straight into Evolution, who was holding this building, hadn't rotated into Skyhook just yet, and Vudo gets absolutely slammed, forced to reassess and heal, and Yasto is trying to guard that front line with Yurice with the smokes as well and pushing in, but Elevate, so strong in map number 1, doubling down and continue on that fighting nature. That Bangalore Bloodhound Horizon comp is so aggressive.
And it is not nearly on the other side of this engagement respectful enough of Elevate, who are preying on the outside of the ring. They swoop their way in, and Evolution don't pay respect to the fact that other teams can be rotating in. They don't expect that it'll happen, and fair enough, why would you? I'm sure it hasn't happened all weekend, but the finals are a different beast.
Please say that again. Bro, these qualifiers are a different beast. Every lobby will be a different journey, and it will continuously change. So you, as a team, need to have synergy, cohesiveness, and the willingness to adapt. Now we were talking about those engagements in Skyhook that would be going down, vying for the best positioning that you can get in a dark veil inside, just to find some semblance of cover, dodging the bullets that are coming through. Yozi finds himself down, Dan to join them, and now the last member of Los Licks trying to keep everything alive. But when you crawl through the outs, just 1 HP able to get into the door. The teammates, they're probably a lost cause, but if you can play your life.
No way Los Leaks are still alive. There's a third party coming in, so it's actually feasible that they could outlast PBV, despite the fact that PBV, in a way, had won this fight. Wide swing takes out Den Pride, and the rest of this fight looks like it isn't set on continuing. We've got a few lazy arc stars being tossed in, seeing if we can follow up. But PBV get the chance to reset, and with a gold knockdown, no less. Los Leaks still technically alive as Chickas is waiting on the outside.
Yes, very much a little nervous, especially with nukes also in the building, operating that first floor and a half. I really want to go ahead and shout out the team above, utilizing that conduit ult to kind of block off that inner staircase, but Los Licks will be found out on Mu, kind of dealing the final below. 14 squads remaining, and that's one of my favorite things about Skyhook endings is usually you'll have a multitude of teams, but another thing, that's my favorite thing, Onmu, Rebirth, handshake.
Could be pretty good. Could be pretty good. Bit of catalyst wall that doesn't get followed up on, which is concerning. 40 seconds left on the next zone close means that the cat wall that might otherwise provide you a safe rotation is no longer actually held by Onmu. So we could see nukes run into a bit of trouble as they try and cross the open area, but not as much trouble as Pen 5 are going to have.
Ooh.
Not only are other teams going to try and sandwich in on them, but should you eventually survive this zone close, there is only one way to continue playing Apex Legends.
They do have the Dark Veil available to them to kind of bury out of this, but essentially, once they have to vacate this, that is a very, very tight rotate into Skyhook, navigating just up against the wall. They just have a slim margin, and with someone sitting outside their door wanting to anchor off their back before they make their rotate in, there we go. Dark Veil splitting the difference. Yeah, this one's gonna be tough. I'm not looking forward to this.
It's great utility being used for right now. Pen 5 with enough fences here, don't really have to worry about them being destroyed, and as much as Chase Mob has to dip into the zone for just a second, this is a war of attrition that Pen 5 are winning. There's no two ways about it. Having to destroy these fences, Watson is doing so much work. Hambino is basically 1v3ing right now, and it's simply because nobody can actually push into this fortress.
EBV has fallen, meanwhile, to S2, and now Drop In Gaming also wants to get involved. You can see Redeem just on the northern side of this engagement. And as that circle continuously collapses, S2 will not be safe. Nukes has fallen. I'd imagine that within the next 30 seconds, we are going to be down to only 4 teams.
I think that's a pretty fair prediction, given how little of this zone is actually zone. The bottom half of it simply can't be played. So S2 are going to have to hold on to likely the fence line that is to the very northernmost tip of this ring, if not take the building that lies to its northeast, or rather northwest. Hanging around, having had a little bit of a better run this time. Hold the last touch of high ground that is going to be cut off by this last ring, and could play the outside of the fence line themselves, albeit the fence line that lies to the south.
They should have no issue kind of getting this, but they need to make sure that they don't immediately get pushed on, and they are. Black Hole being expended. Because you overextend on the high ground, you get knocked. That immediately allows someone to push straight up into you. And just like you said, hanging around looking better this time, well, unfortunately, they've been eliminated. And now Elevate control that high ground that they had. Now you can see multiple teams in the distance there on the right. This is going to be interesting, right? That circle starting to close, 43 seconds left. They're going to be a mass exodus towards that building that SKT operates.
Elevate have far from game-winning advantage here. They still do have to play on the low ground once this ring closes. The position they hold temporarily is one that they're looking to hold for KP alone. E8 make their move to the opposite side of the fence, knowing that they now have to control this in order to actually win the game. S2 go down, 7 squads left. Your prediction was 4, and we're edging ever closer, Tiff.
9 Lives has fallen, Pen 5. Chase Mob able to get back into full form on the shield, trying to prioritize healing behind this Dark Veil, throwing out the piercing spike so no one can push towards them. Drop In Gaming finding a little bit of toughness right there. Redeem falls as well. We're down to the final 5 squads here in map number 2, but with all of the action collapsing around the building that SKT is in, they can kind of poke out and play their building because every single team on the outskirts, in a sense, is helping them. You saw the exodus of people pushing that building, but it was Elevate that was able to grab a knock or 2 to really kind of almost assist SKT.
Now, take a look at the mini-map of Zach in the top left. Zapdo and Shubi are both faced out towards the biggest threats. Drop In Gaming to the north that could wrap around on Elevate, and 7Z who could do much the same thing. All of Elevate's focus has to be above them because an actual push along the fence line is almost impossible with teams like SKT T2 and 7Z looking down that way.
This is going to be tough, and if Elevate play this right, should all the other teams collapse on them, they should essentially be able to just open season into those engagements, because Drop In Gaming is going to have to push and expose themselves. But something that's unique is that the fact we have a Loba Rampart. They've been here for a very long time, but look at their quality of their loot. They are poised to be able to take on a multitude of engagements here, and they have the Rampart walls to kind of assist in just staying out of the fray. You saw Elevate, it was Zach Mazer and co kind of shooting down the walls as soon as they were going up and trying to put pressure on them. But in that regard, as long as they keep replacing them, they should be okay. And we could see Sheila sing soon.
We very well could. I'd look forward to it. As long as SKT2 stay up here, they're safe. They're gods. But as soon as they drop, they lose so much of the strength that makes their composition viable. Out comes Sheila, as you predicted. 7Z go down, and now she's pointed straight at Elevate, who are playing the fence line to take as little damage as possible. Nades go out. Let's see what SKT2 can do. Where do they focus?
They need to reign supreme here. Pen 5 just barely staying alive on the low ground. The black holes being expended. You can see Drop-In Gaming has been eliminated. There's no way they were going to survive that rotation, but Elevate finds themselves in the open, just navigating through the fence line, dodging these Kraber bullets from Trevstax like it's the Matrix, and Pen 5 falls. It's Elevate, SKT2, Cape already goes down. Now Crows and Trevs, they're going to have to stand out, but Sheila makes her move, Dia.
Try and finish off a few of those thirsts. It's Trevstax versus Zach, and Trevstax takes the win. The last second 50-50 straight on honorable 3v3 ends up going on over their way. This is a big shift for SKT2, who otherwise could have fallen without so much of the KP that Elevate picked up on the low ground. The fact they pick up all 3 kills on those members and take the win keeps them even.
But the question is, how many eliminations were they able to pick up while they held that building? Because they were there throughout the mid game and for the longest amount of time. And for all the teams that were looking to push on them, the other teams on the outskirts were able to grab a lot of those KP. But I mean, we said it earlier, Trev was, holding the torch for the fallen MNK players. He wants to fix the lack of MNK in the ALGS. Well, sir, that is the best way to get yourself there. Take a map win and continue the momentum.
Ends up working, and even though we said that these maps were going to play out differently, it is telling that E8 end up in a very similar spot. Let's take a look at the standings and see how that's informed. Now, after 2 maps, what we have so far.
This is interesting because, yes, Elevate just finished second, but we talked about one of my favorite ways to get the most points. It's going to be those eliminations, and clearly Elevate is absolutely frying, averaging 20.5 points for the first 2 matches. Insane on the day thus far. Pen 5 with 28 points, a very impressive showing, and Drop-In Gaming finding themselves at 25, which, of course, you're still averaging north of 10 points per game. When you have to compete with someone who's averaging 20 so far, we just only can think, can consistency reign supreme here?
And I do wonder what the difference will be between World's Edge and Stormpoint when we eventually get there. Now, we do have one more game on World's Edge where Elevate and their, I'll say, rotational proficiency can really thrive, because while Elevate have been playing fantastically on an individual mechanical level, they've been being put in great positions by Zach behind the scenes. Whether that actually stays true or not throughout the test of these next 4 games is really what will determine whether they're the first team in NA to qualify for Pro League.
Well, that's something that one day I'm going to have to VOD review, just Zach Mazer at this point for the calls, because they didn't just start in Skyhook. They, at one point, were over by Overlook, kind of rotating through No Name all the way up to where they were able to take out Evolution. And from there, just continued on finding the most insane spots to be able to live, especially towards that end game in Skyhook on the fence line. They were able to survive there with that Bang Bloodhound and not get sent on. So it was quite impressive, but let's cut to a quick break, and when we come back, we'll have that final map on World's Edge. 2 games down, 4 more to go, but it's Elevate Gaming with 41 points that have found themselves at the top of the leaderboard. Now, just have to see, can they withstand the final maps of World's Edge and then the transition on to Stormpoint? I'm Spider Tip, and it's Dia bringing you all of the action for North American Pro League qualifiers. Dia, what are your thoughts so far from the first 2 maps that we've witnessed?
I actually think that given specifically you called this out, the zone and how difficult it was to play this last round, a lot of our teams did remarkably well because when we go up to Sky West, many teams get quite confused and we see a lot more kills over in Countdown than we normally would, even a rotation that was otherwise patrolled by Evolution out towards the eastern side. The fact that we didn't see as much of that makes me really happy because it means that teams are practicing their rotates in. They're actually making it to Skyhook safe. And once we're there, well, who was really going to be able to play that zone like they had practiced it 100 times? Nobody practices that zone 100 times.
Yeah, as soon as I saw it, I was kind of like, that's a zone where I'm glad that I'm on a desk and not competing, because let me tell you, not fun. But I will say that you mentioned, not losing out on your life in Countdown. Pen 5, we last saw them kind of navigating the outskirts of Countdown, one of the people to make their way into Skyhook, and it was looking rather dire. So I wanted to be able to see their rotation in, but regardless, they were able to make it into that top 5 situation from what looked to be rather troubling.
I think, and this is if I'm not mistaken in the chaos of the end game, that Pen 5 even made it all the way to 3rd place, which was a really impressive thing to watch, given that they essentially were just playing in a corridor that anybody, especially Elevate, could fire down with completely free will. There was a plenty going on in that endgame circle there that had a lot of other teams distracted. We saw nades raining down on Pen 5. It did not look like a great situation for them, but they made it work and have managed to keep themselves very competitive in the course of today's games. The 3rd game coming up now is going to determine exactly how long that lasts, as will our transition over to Stormpoint, but everything is temporary, especially in Apex Legends, where you are, to an extent, beholden to what the map gives you, whether it be zones, loot, whatever.
Whether it be beacons, whatever it is, the crafting rotation. But you know what? We started south, we went north. Let's go back south, but not necessarily as quite south as we had in map number 1. As you can see, we have a relatively vertical plane line that will kind of drop our teams relatively with ease. Now, as soon as I see a circle like this, I'm thinking Lava Siphon immediately, or some threshold of it.
I've got to agree with you. This looks like a great place to set up in Lava Siphon. Even if the zone doesn't pull here, it's going to house a lot of teams. You can have at least 6 teams coexisting in the POI Lava Siphon at any one time. And that's to say nothing of what else can kick off. We do have another 50-50 going on. Remember, TS Mex managed to win this last time. We'll see if they can do it again.
Staying relatively healthy, but as the swing, 118, but we will need to reposition, stay out of that line of sight of damage. They were able to deal a good chunk, but that Radiant transfer will come through and help out Enemigo and Survey. But Talus, though, needed to get back to the teammates. I'm not necessarily sure if that was the right call to push across in the open, because now when you have player already down, taking high ground, yes, is key, but meanwhile, BR Kittens has lost the contest of Harvester, and Nukes also potentially got landed on.
Yeah, interesting to see Nukes going down so quickly when they've normally been able to live in launch site just fine. Enemigo finds a lot of damage, gets a Radiant transfer on the way down, keeps TS Mex in the fight, and Zenvi even finds a shield break with a melee. But Enemigo, unlikely to be able to pick up the res right here. There we go, as Frost dropping down. And LBJ, with all 3 members left, should be cleaning up TS Mex in no time.
This is the exact legend composition that we were talking about. The Conduit, Catalyst, Horizon. You have the verticality, you have the Radiant transfer, especially with the Conduit, able to keep your teammates, so long as you don't go down, relatively healthy, because the cooldown is insane on that ability. Kissix is down, yes, of course, but we need to push into the swing of things, and just like that, TSMX will be eliminated off rip. A little bit of vengeance and a quick reset, not too bad, but let's go LBJ. That was tough, right? Fights on the high ground, fights on the low ground, some little melees in the mix.
Credit to them, they don't even spend the time BMing either. Normally, you'll get a few shots on a box. Hey, drop on me again. But LBJ, they went 1-for-1 early on. They happened to win this time, and it's time to get on to business because it looks like we are pulling right next door to LBJ over in Harvester. This is data that they don't have just yet, but they should be able to get access to as soon as they can find a ring console.
Check in with SKT. T2 have made their way into Harvester. There is a ring console here, so I'd expect a couple teams making their rotation path through this to be able to get that information. And for a team that plays that Loba Rampart, setting up shop in those early zones to make sure that they are vital for the long games. The fact that they have chosen here to get that information early with so accurately that they called the prior zone starts to think, hey, it could go this way as, you know, Treb is using your favorite weapon, Dia, the charge rifle. It was the Sentinel in the semis, but, you know, we gotta love the charge rifle.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed charge rifle this split this season. There we go. Is the word that I'm looking for. Is regular Apex does not operate in splits.
The charge rifle just fried your brain thinking about it. Let me just tell you, it does the same to me. Usually, I'm on the, you know, wrong end of a charge rifle, though.
Yeah, that's understandable. I've been there too, and it's not particularly fun. Dig, nice use of the catalyst wall, gets themselves a safe rotation as much as Purple Slushy really wanted to fight, and I mean they really wanted to fight. This is going to be a spot that these teams can coexist. Purple Slushy's ache for an engagement isn't just something that comes with the personality of this team. It's a byproduct of where they're sat right now. If you stay in this position, this small snake, Purple Slushy are eventually going to get pushed by a team that has a lot better loot, a better place to be. They're a squad that needs to be taking advantage of other teams that are rotating in around them that don't have this little bit of cover before it happens to them.
You say teams rolling up will immediately tune in with Redeem, who's just made their way over. Yes, they're getting peppered and kind of reassessing their position, but as you see that have that next ring information. So they're looking to see, hey, what is potentially free? Where can we set up? But Nine Lives, they also want to do the same, but they're engaging into a chokehold here, finding a lot of damage, a grab lift. Help that team in front of them disengage. They're able to grab a knock onto Void, and S2 will be eliminated before they can even think about getting out.
Death Trap in the train line. And we've got another exit. Remember we talked about this, Purple Slushy. Trying to take a few kills here and there. Again, don't really come up with much. It is impressive, perhaps more impressive than having 2K already, that Dell has only 1 damage, but, you know, it happens how it happens. It's difficult to make work.
He's trying so hard to. Bangalore with a digi threat just itching for any kind of engagement with 1 damage. Well, hopefully not for long, but PBV have found themselves in an engagement on the outside of the ring. View trying to find some good damage. The black hole going out. Did it hit the target though, or did it get blocked by the counter? Still going in. Radiant transfer already ensued, but still, they just keep barreling forward every bit of damage. But Flakes able to go down. Brainsy gets the trade in a 2v2. Brainsy needs to do everything that he can to potentially stay alive. 5 seconds to get him back into that engagement. He's going to call it off and actually heal Flesh first because 7Z is dead.
And it takes a little while to pick up a medkit, longer than it would to bat, and unfortunately, much, much longer than it'll take for this push to happen. We already talked about how 9 Lives were itching for a fight, and they find one, even having to push through all of that. It's a pretty simple way to take out PBV, who had a pretty miraculous fight before that. Flux really impressing me with the wall bounce, but after the squad wipe, doesn't mean much.
Wall bounce isn't gonna save your life.
I know.
Unfortunate style points though, but that was one of the most solid third parties we witnessed on broadcast today, because it doesn't matter how you got the eliminations or how long you took in that engagement, it still count. It's still points on the board, so congratulations, that was well timed. Now Elevate, keep an eye on them. There's Geyser right now as far away from the zone as humanly possible, aside for if you were still up north of Fragment. But you have crafting over there. You have ring console. So you'll get information to get yourself into. And they're no stranger to fighting. You mentioned it earlier. Zach Mazer is making some really solid calls. So keep an eye on where they decide to rotate from there.
Another squad to keep your eyes on, Pen 5. They're playing the fence line just south of Harvester, across from the train line. For those of you who are more familiar with World's Edge, you may know what I'm talking about. It is a position that is going to be really nice for them, mainly because it provides safety in the zone while being relatively difficult to push. It's out in the open, it's isolated from anything else, you can't share it with anyone, and no one's contested Pen 5 for it.
Boys, though, running into some trouble here at the tree. Forelli throws down a lot of damage, does take some, and is forced to kind of back off and hit a little bit of a healing reset, as well as Darks. Now, we already know they expended one Bangalore ultimate. The question is, will one be answered back? As they're looking to kind of smoke and disengage, kind of flipping the switch on the team and reversing the position. So therefore, they're actually doing a little bit of the gatekeeping. But the issue with this is you kind of pop down onto lower ground, but fighting in this building, Dia, may be a little more advantageous for them as opposed to fighting in the open.
Tough to make work still, as both teams are going to have to move at similar times from this spot. Holding a building like this gives the other team time to move on, and that's what you're hoping happens. Kicks, however, doesn't seem to want to do that, and LBJ, taking this engagement ever closer, are going to keep pushing you out of their territory until eventually you run into someone else.
Good shouts. You can see they're very aware of where that team is kind of maneuvering. They have the next ring information. Now, I think they may be looking to position themselves further into that next zone, but here is the snake building we were talking about. 9 Lives, a well-timed third party, and continuing on that momentum. They were looking for a fight earlier on. Well, hey, they finally got one.
And Purple Slushy, still here. Now sweating, as they haven't been able to find an engagement just yet. With 9 Lives already having expended a decent amount of time, they go back up, check their flank, but this push is happening. Purple Slushy know that it's going to occur, and now don't have a Horizon ult to defend themselves.
Not really sure what a purple slushy is, but I guess I have to figure it out because LBJ, that fight that was initially happening over here at Tree, it has been extended. A Dark Veil inside, well, one to answer back from Kissix, but not before Seven Frost does fall. Now, in a 2v3 situation, a lot of utility and ultimates being expended here. The Radiant transfer did come through. Now, granted, it only heals up to when you're not taking damage for about 2 seconds, and even with the ability to get that banner, think about the chance to get their teammate back into the fray. There is a respawn beacon behind them, but going into the open, Dia, you're going to get poked, prodded. Everyone's kind of been watching this, especially in 5, that train line you were talking about.
Them's down. Pen 5, as you noted, have extended their control to encompass more than just the fence line that was originally theirs. The fact that they put Presley out here is in big part due to the slippery nature of Bangalore. Is likely the player and the legend that can survive for the longest. And speaking of surviving, that's just about all Purple Slushy can hope for right now. Ultimately unable to find an engagement until it was thrust upon them, they have very much lost the fight to 9 Lives, who are on a rampage this game.
The fighting power that 9 Lives has been quite impressive, right? Because the ability for Purple Slushy, knowing that 9 Lives showed up, right? That engagement was happening. The fact that 9 Lives was able to retract, check their flank, and then still kind of push back down and take that engagement, taking out 2 members of Purple Slushy, with Pluto, kind of the Horizon, dancing around out here looking for any bit of resources. And at this point, looking for an end game regain is going to be incredibly tough. We were talking about that Harvester here, Dia. Multiple teams kind of positioning themselves, and even Evolution over there on the right side trying to make their way in.
Purple Slushy's move is likely going to take them through the north of Harvester. Very exposed, as you can still play the train line as well. I'm sure they'll be deliberating that, but take a look over at where Pen 5 are. Remember we talked about their fence line and their extension into the train track. Elevate have taken that now. Elevate are in control of a nice chunk of high ground and arguably pose the singular biggest threat to both Pen 5 and 9 Lives.
Oh, this is going to be really tough, honestly, and Elevate's going to come out, if they play their cards right, potentially victorious of all of these teams that are going to navigate that area here because they have to move. Yes, you can play a little bit of this. You'll be safe until you have to resurface, but I think going under this bridge here and kind of playing from the left, pushing into Pen 5 a little bit more. But the moment this engagement breaks out, you know who's going to show up. It's going to be Shubi. Oh, the
Yeah.
9 lies push, though. That's going to make things a little more challenging, Dia.
It certainly is. It's going to come down to, I hate to say it, but a bit of a hands check between E8 and 9 Lies. See who's more on their game 3 rounds in. Because Elevate are not going to give up this bridge without a fight. And knowing that 9 Lies are looking at them, now there's no question that one of these two teams simply must die. Because they can't, what is that? There's a phrase. One cannot live while the other survives?
Why does that sound like some Harry Potter
I think it is Harry
theme?
Potter.
It has to be. It has to be. Meanwhile, LBJ cannot live while the other must survive, and they have fallen. I'm sorry. Like,
They just straight up can't live. Like, that's...
you're just not allowed to live here.
Not like this. Next round gonna close in as well, so a quick reset is necessitated by boys who have 30 odd seconds to do it. They still gotta push up into that Elevate 9 Lies Pen 5 area. Not something that I would like to do, but 9 Lies are already finding themselves some kills, having gone around the other way and picked up the last remaining member of Purple Slushy.
Hitting the res on Laser. I'm laughing. Production was like, yeah, Dia just quoted Harry Potter. And I was like, you know, I was a Harry Potter fan back in the day. I read all of the books. And what would your Patronus be, Dia?
It's one of those things that, like, sticks in your head. You don't really think about where it's from. It just, like... that quote just lives in my head now. And Patronus, that's the white thing that you use to
ghost,
dispel
right?
evil, right?
Yeah.
I think a hedgehog.
Yeah, okay, Dia. I love that for
Passive
you.
animal, but you know, it feels
hedgehog.
right. I don't actually know if hedgehogs are passive. They might be incredibly violent.
Honestly, we're gonna have to find out, but at least you're not a penguin. Trev Stacks, though, with the Sheila holding out on the low ground, but this legend composition that they are playing alludes to that, being able to continuously replenish the rampart walls and just solidify the positioning. But Elevate was once on the top. Zapdo, though, finds himself all the way on the bottom and will be taken out. Boys will fall as well, and it's 9 Lies who are looking poised to clean up a lot of eliminations, and Pen 5 able to kind of navigate the realm scotch-free.
And in the hands check, 9 Lies end up on top. Their rampage continues, taking down the team that has placed top 1 or 2 in both of our games so far. 9 Lies very well could straight up win this game if they keep playing like they have. Their decision making and evidently their fighting capability is so dialed in right now.
Yeah, we always talk about their fighting capability and how just it looks cohesive, right? But if you have that much fighting power, it's just getting the macro in check. It's getting the zone calling, making sure you're in the right positions to take the smart fights, because clearly you have no issues with those. But Redeem, this is a position I love to hate and hate to love, because it's really solid, but with a lot of horizons in the lobby, the chances of someone grav lifting towards the end to try and take them down could happen.
We saw this last game as well, but sometimes teams just have to push you because it's their last best Hail Mary option, and it just doesn't go well for you. That high ground spot is subject to that more than some other positions might be. 9 Lies, however, they have a different set of complications, namely their need to move and move quickly straight through the crosshairs of Redeem. It is going to be delayed by just a few seconds, and this ring is pretty darn slow. With a Digi in hand, there should be a decent amount of damage that Redeem can throw down on top of them.
And this is just open season. You can continuously poke and put so much pressure on all of those teams, because you can live here for a good chunk of time. Yes, that incoming ultimate, dodge it a little bit, just nestle into a nearby corner, as you can just essentially third party any engagement from here, with Voski having that Skull Piercer on the 30-30, and it's just been so critical in that mid to up close engagement. So as long as you don't try the hip fire, it's a little meticulous, but 9 Lies now down to the final 1 member of a Wope will just be swarmed, hanging around. Pen 5 has been eliminated as well.
And with these two big players who came from the south now taken down, Redeem have, as we already talked about, the best position, the position you love to hate. Around the outside, you've still got a couple other challengers, though. Teams whose spots are going to be a little bit slower to play. Say, for example, where Los Leaks are right now. Gyozi, perhaps able to pick up a reset, but having to survive in the two versus many. As a lot of teams, including Oblivion, are starting to throw down Harass, and Fuse can get a lot of value.
A lot of value, not just in early game contests, but in that end game when you see people behind cover. It's great for if maybe you can grab a nice clip with that 30-30, good chunk of damage, follow it up with a knuckle cluster. Next thing you know, you've potentially got a knock. But the only thing I'm a little concerned about is the fact that maybe Arcology picked up this weapon a little bit late in the game. There's 0 attachments. 0.
Not a great 30-30. Not the dream 30-30 by any means. SKTT2, they have access to whatever attachments, whatever gear they deem most valuable. The fact that they haven't moved may allude to an evac tower or a push on Redeem in their future. Keep your eyes on the kill feed as Los Leaks end up losing one. Yuri's going to fall down as well, and that means that Evolution, having lost him, are no more.
Yeah, but I want to go ahead and shout out that Arcology had so much of that damage with the knuckle cluster. You can see he dropped the 30-30, grabbed the flatline, minimal ammo there. He was able to get 2 cracks with the knuckle cluster, but someone else was able to get those eliminations. We were talking about being in that position that Redeem was. A team has decided to jump up. We break up Sheila in the air. You cannot play here, and it's just a little bit of battle of trading positions, and in the end, Redeem stays so incredibly healthy and able to take down SKT2, and now Oblivion finds themselves on the outside. More knuckle clusters, more black holes. Dia, we've got chaos.
We need another knuckle cluster, but we still got 15 seconds for it to come off cooldown. Oblivion are forced to jump up over to the area that Redeem are policing. Blinkser still low, probably unrecoverable at this point. Has Arcology hiding in a corner. So little ammunition, as you talked about earlier. No shield bats, just knuckle clusters and prayers, and somehow it's working. Slacking goes down.
Oh, now Akimbo last alive for the squad with 4 teams remaining in this final circle. It's collapsing. There's not a lot of space. Oblivion falls and Redeem from position. Z Davis, the redemption arc, looking to stand up strong, claim that position. Chatham is prime falls. They've already got a knock onto Stunny from drop-in gaming. The trade comes through, but Vosky and Z Davis making that switch. Can they get a map win here? Firing into the dark veil, very low on health and able to encompass the enemy. Redeem take map number 3.
I'll be honest with you, I didn't know who was going to come out on top of that, because it was not so much about the guns in the end as it seemed that the ring was doing a lot of work. But with the position, with the health that Redeem entered that fight with, and the way that they were able to slowly but surely clean it up with some nice AoE sprays and ultimately take down a lot of folks, means that they do walk away with the additional 12 points. A few KP gonna follow them up, as you noted that they took down SKTT2 in their own Hail Mary play.
The fact that they remained so healthy from that initial onslaught that SKTT2 brought to them on the high ground, they were able to get quick shield swaps, and it was almost as if they had been to full form because they didn't really lose a lot of that white health, which was really critical to dropping down and finding the success on the low ground, because you're like, hey, I don't really know how this is going to end up, but do you remember back in the day, ALGS, old games, end game circles, you chuck a nade in the final circle, the frag exploded and just threw everyone out. Was that, who was that play? Why was that, was it Alp? Was it Alp or Lily that did that? I don't know. Anyway, there were no nades.
It happened to me.
I've seen it, it was beautiful, and yeah, that's not what happened here, but 4 squads in a tiny circle like that, I'm starting to think that we're getting some good end game engagements. And shout out to Redeem for getting that W in map number 3. I'd love to pull up the standings, Dia, because can you imagine what that should do for them?
I mean, I don't even have to imagine. Fortunately, I am saved by the power of mathematics behind the scenes, as Redeem rocket their way up to 4th place, 30 points now, and not that far off of Elevate's pretty low-scoring game, all things considered. Their average of 20 points, as you illustrated last game, has now dropped significantly, and they seem a bit more human now after this fumble.
Yeah, they got a 3-point game, Dia.
Mhm.
Not bad. Not bad considering you were at the 20-point average, but dropping gaming is going to inch a little bit closer to that, making that long game. And 5, just going up a few as well, but Redeem getting into the fray of things, and with 14 points differentiating them from that top, we are only halfway through. Now we move on to Stormpoint, and for our teams that have found success on World's Edge, can they replicate that on Stormpoint, or will things get incredibly shaken up?
It's a big question. I'm keeping my eyes on Drop-In Gaming, that's for certain, because their intention towards taking fights, towards skirmishing often, should bode really well for Stormpoint. We'll see who else can switch up their style from World's Edge, perhaps finding even more success, but that's all going to happen after the break.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Apex Legends Global Series preseason qualifiers. I'm SpiderTip, that's Dia, and we just had 3 amazing back-to-back-to-back matches on World's Edge. It got crazy, but now we turn our tides to Stormpoint. Dia, do you think a lot of our teams are going to shake things up with their legend composition or kind of stay true?
I think we're going to see a lot of shakeups. We have not seen that much Conduit. Fuse has been pretty back and forth, but even things like Horizon gain so much more value. We probably won't see drastic pickups. I don't expect to see any Caustics. I don't expect to see any Wraiths. I wish we would see Ash, but that's just not happening right now. Unfortunately, but I do still expect that things will change, things will shift. What I'm really curious about is Elevate, because they've been one of our few teams to run Bloodhound, constantly looking for edge, I would say patrolling fights in this game, and I do wonder whether that shifts to something a little bit more Stormpoint friendly, or whether they keep up with this skirmish heavy comp that doesn't have a whole lot of cover from afar.
Ooh, that will be interesting. But honestly, I think a lot of our teams are going to stay true to where they were. And maybe a few change. We'll see that once we get to kind of character selection. But I like that, right? With all the changes that we've witnessed on Stormpoint, I think it makes it so much more fresh. And seeing people kind of navigate through Pylon, even on those circles that make you rotate through some of those newer points of interest, it's been journey to see because a lot of the verticality was added to Stormpoint, which was already very heavy in vertical engagement. So Horizon, very much a staple to these, and Catalyst as well. But you mentioned Conduit. I think, look, I'm a Conduit lover. I really do. I think she is so vital, so strong when implemented correctly, especially with a lot of these teams that have such mechanical prowess, just like fighting skills galore.
Yeah, when you want to fight, Conduit make fight good. We saw even early on some Rev Conduit being showcased in the EMEA preseason qualifiers. So it's always the chance that we get a team that wants to get a little bit cheeky with that. You did talk about the map changes as well, some of Pylon, some big impacts that you aren't going to see, but you will experience during the course of these games. Is that of the changes by Lightning Rod and Devastated Coast. You don't really see plays over by Devastated Coast or what used to be fish farms anymore because it's such a smaller POI. You can take Echo HQ, you can take Launchpad, and Lightning Rod also doesn't have a whole bunch of finishes that favor this high ground so immensely. The closest we really get is that in between Lightning Rod and Stormcatcher area. So, as we move into what is clearly going to be a central game, what you can expect is that teams from these POIs, both South and North, will have slightly faster rotates.
A little bit of contest here at the mill. Feels like old times. Year 4 ALGS is back, but this time it's going to be Euresa's squad, Evolution, getting into the fray of things. And when you don't have a weapon, that makes things a little more troublesome because the main contest point at the mill are those 6 bins in the very center. And when you start popping them open, sometimes you won't get a weapon initially. And a lot of the weapons are kind of slown up around these stairs. And you can see a little bit of disengage as it seemed to have been a little bit more chaotic than an actual contest.
Now, when nobody drops on either side, you imagine the teams are going to re-engage, but that's something that BR Kittens aren't quite ready for yet. Nice energy mag waiting for you. Could turn the tide, however, and Becca is going to hold down this entryway, scouting out for the team to come across this way. Evolution are starting to move out towards the left side, though, and Becca going to swing with Nyx. We'll see if they can find a one clip or something. L-Star at close range is devastating. Becca does jump up for a moment. Nyx gets instantly melted, and React throws themselves bodily into the fight. A 1v1, the only thing left but Eurease with the Eva makes it happen for Evolution.
I wish my Eva worked like that, but I'm pretty sure it's user error. But Eurease really able to put the finishing touches on that engagement. The reset will likely come through, but let's check in with Nukes. They went out early in map number 3, and as we make our way over here, another contest. We've already lost full on James, and now Prodigy and Onmu must take out the remainder of the team in front of them.
Jam starting to push up, should be able to take down Onmu, but takes a little while longer than they would have expected. Leaves just Prodigy Aces, who still is unable to find a knock. Maybe 25 HP, and, well, there was a dream. There is one no longer. Chatamus Prime, clean up. And let us not forget that this is not just any new roster that Chatamus Prime have cleaned up. It's arguably one of the scariest, based on history alone, rosters in this lobby that they've taken out of Pylon.
I mean, a really well job there for Chatamus Prime. I mean, they've been consistently in the challenger circuit and looking to up and get into Pro League, but TSMX really struggling to get out of a lot of these early game engagements, finding themselves in a lot of contests, and now Talos has to finish out the team in front of them in a 1v2. Things are going to be tough now that an Amigo has been thirsted. They likely will have the shield swap available to them. Now, reminder here that Conduit is a support legend. Should Talos be able to disengage effectively, expending that Dark Veil, you can craft your teammates' banners here. But you gotta survive first.
Looks like that's the plan. We'll see how quickly it can happen, as Talos does have a crafter literally right there, but we talked about this team earlier. We're going to see him tango now. We have a seer in the lobby, and Oblivion are starting to push onto drop-in gaming. Senvi gets taken down, and Oblivion, with a catalyst wall, are able to move down onto the low ground after dealing a nice chunk of damage. They don't find a knock just yet, but Drop-In Gaming still around, just exiting off on the red ping you see in the further end of your screen. And Blinkser going to be able to follow along with Akimbo and Arcology.
Arcology really on the villain arc, right? I mean, Fuse, now Seer.
Seer.
I don't know what he's doing. I'm just along for the ride. I'm just sitting here on the desk, and we're just gonna see a bunch of Seer action. Wow.
It might happen.
Wow.
Got more Bloodhounds too. Did not expect more Bloodhounds. Expected less Bloodhounds.
I'm okay with more Bloodhounds. I'm okay with the Bloodhound bang thrown in the horizon, whether it's a catalyst in that like kind of flex position for that legend composition. But a lot of teams are making their way over towards the mill and kind of choosing this to be on that rotational pattern and look to be like we need to pull more central after this. But Evolution, Euris, that reset came through, and now we got to take down S2.
Playing around the head peak for now. Drop-In Gaming getting pushed from above. J down.
J down, Crook. Finding himself incredibly low, but gets a nice shield swap. Stunny answers back, gets that trade that immediately throws down on him. It is all onto Crook. Maybe a collective 50 HP.
God,
We now know where that player is pushing from, but look who is deciding to join the fray. Fights here are so tumultuous, and Drop-In Gaming will be eliminated, but so will 7Z. Oblivion on the villain arc. Arcology, it's you.
That is the epitome of, well, sometimes life just isn't fair. Oblivion walk in and they get all of the credit for that end. They get all of the loot. They get to continue on in this lobby and accumulate more points even after both 7Z and Dig fought tooth and nail to stay alive till the bitter end. Oblivion, super big chilling now, have absolutely no problems. No other teams that are even thinking of engaging on them. And the lesson that we can take from that is third party on time and life's not fair.
Life's not fair. You heard it here first. Probably a million times, but now this time from Dia on broadcast. Now, let's tune into Elevate as they kind of make their way into an engagement. Zach Mazer, right? Will this be a Mazer moment? He's able to deal a lot of damage there. Zapto and Shubi, though. Shubi gets caught off guard. Zapto needs to throw down, but just gets outplayed by Los Licks, who handled that engagement so flawlessly.
Well, that's two of our top three teams now gone, and that's before we even hit 15th. Not even a placement point has gone to either of them. So the standings, ladies and gentlemen, are about to be thrown into disarray. But Los Licks, you gotta be happy for them. Finally able to pick up a on-screen, meaningful team fight win. And they are a squad that I think a lot of people will have happy feelings about seeing once again, mainly because you'll recognize some of their names from teams like No Name, as they were all on that during last year's Challenger circuits, did very, very well. We're a team that everybody was looking out for. Den Pride's been around for ages, both coaching and playing. Los Licks have earned their stripes, and the fact that they're able to take down Elevate on what was by far an ego push from Elevate on the side, no cracks, no initial damage, just raw engagement, puts their name on the board in a really great way.
Now, they just need to climb up the board that is the leaderboard so they can, secure as many points as possible, or even a ticket to Pro League just starting out today. But as LBJ navigates the command center entrance a little more hesitantly, I respect it. Shooting out the piercing spikes and incoming another. That's a great way to kind of do a nice little check to make sure, hey, where is that team? Is there one immediately on the other side of this door? Well, there is. Z Davis and co. are in the nearby vicinity. 15 squads remaining. And I know we had previously pulled up that map, Dia, and we're kind of heading a little more towards that kind of no-name building to the left side of Stormcatcher where a team already is occupied. So think about the open areas that we have to traverse to get to there.
Open areas like, for example, the recently annihilated Jurassic that hanging around have made their way through. A really fun place to play, but not one they'll be able to, if you'll excuse the pun, hang around. Instead, their rotation is going to take them straight up through this really difficult to traverse area that leads you right up these little, look at ski lifts, and ultimately should mean that hanging around are going to use an evac tower at some point to make this a little bit easier. We'll see when they choose to use it, if they are forced to, but it is a difficult move up that hill all the way over to command.
LBJ and Redeem kind of in a little standoff here on the other side of this one door. Vosky, you can see his position just kind of peeking over with the head only. Golden kind of taking almost a crossfire-like angle to maybe look for some kind of diagonal action. Now, if I'm LBJ, I don't really have a good chunk. I could go out and maybe make that southern wrap. You're on kind of the highest ground over here, overlooking a lot of things. It gives you a good chunk of information. But what do we do here, Dia? Do we look for initial knock, maybe something that you can put on and make it a 3v2?
At this point, with the door in between you, I do like what LBJ are doing, seeing if they can get a nice pick, but their focus does have to be on the rotation into them from behind. The pressure that they're putting back into Command Center is only and should remain a formality unless a freak accident happens. Focus does have to be on the rotation ahead, because they do not need to move through Command Center to take control of this game in a meaningful way.
Yeah, a lot of damage going out on either side. Redeem gonna elect to smoke out so they can't kind of see inside the door. Meanwhile, hanging around has fallen elsewhere on the map, but a dark veil has been expended as our teams look to fight even further into Command Center. Yes, a lot of shield cracks going back and forth, but no real knocks just yet that are gonna be the opening of that door.
If you tick for flesh, you're good to go, and already having done 48, LBJ getting to take some space. They're just out-trading their opponents at every turn and have a little bit more impetus to move on inwards. Kicks get slow, though. Backs off almost immediately. LBJ get taken up on a cheeky rotate up the stairs. They lose another, and Redeem hold on, play conservatively, and now hopefully can survive the third party that's coming right off the back of it. Nice catalyst spikes are going to delay a push by just a little while. The Arcstar does not find a stick, but the door should be refreshed. And S2 do not get to take down Redeem off the back end of this.
There's a really solid frag grenade to kind of isolate some more space as Redeem is slowly retreating into the depths of Command Center. This is similarly what they did to LBJ. It's like they were setting a trap up, setting them up to knock them down. And S2, you have to be reserved here. Yes, 30 seconds on that board before that ring starts to close once again. And Redeem have found themselves probably likelihood already in that next zone. Two will need to find their course of rotation. Meanwhile, TSMX has also fallen in the lobby.
Team, we're starting to wrap around. Another team has shown up. S2 are locked inside here with Redeem. No clear way to go. Is there a trap ahead, or do you take the fight with the team behind? Sosi disengages after throwing out a scan, and boys move in off the back of a catalyst wall. Pirelli taking a wide flank.
The boys are here. They're into the mix of things here at Command Center. For the teams that have not yet rotated or taken up residence inside of Stormcatcher, you're just kind of working for the little alcoves inside Command Center. Now, once again, the moment you see an initial knock, it's going to likely signal the end of that team. Happen to LBJ, can happen to the boys.
They move up again, catching just the end. Team starting to move in through these doors. Horizontal, you only get one. And once it gets expended, you know exactly where boys are pushing. So many other teams can use that as a way to engage themselves. A good timer for when they have power over the boys. This small little bit of zone they're able to control with Catalyst gives them some safety. And boys do well to hold the only angle they can realistically be swung from inside Command Center. They're going to have to hold it for a while, and Forelli gets chunked out for just a little bit of damage, having to pop the shield bat, unfortunately covered by Darks and Voski.
This is an engagement here with Redeem that needs to be isolated. Now, mind you, SKT2 is in the mix as well, just on the outside of Command Center.
That's
now,
Flesh.
boys, able to grab Flesh, like you mentioned, Forelli pushing in, but loses the life in the process without actually getting a knock. Redeem could turn this around, and they do. They take out boys in 30 seconds. Now, with a minute before that ring starts to close, they have plenty of time to reset.
And it's the second time that Redeem are able to do this, but play in small corners that aren't being checked until it is much too late and the damage has already gone the other way. Big chunks are being thrown out onto them. They may not be winning these peak battles, but once you push on, you have to do your due diligence or Redeem are going to annihilate you.
Evolution, though, needed to make it a really solid showing here on Storm Point, but finding themselves with an onslaught of damage. Reese barreling forward and takes the fight that Purple Slushy was so desperately looking for in Map 3 and completely destroys them on Storm Point. Reese hitting reset. Now, something's to be said about this. Reese, right, already had that Pro League experience, kind of making his return, trying to get into it, but has found that clutch factor. He's almost kind of like the backbone to the team that is able to just clean up a nice mess, but Redeem have cleaned up so many messes in Command Center and have learned that maybe they shouldn't have gone up that very long zip.
This is a smart Horizon ult to throw out on Redeem because it keeps them in the zone for just a few crucial seconds longer. They are surely dead as finally they are the ones that make an overzealous push. Zozy not going to survive this either as they stuck around in Command Center for a bit too long. And it is SKTT2 that pick up the kills on their way into Stormcatcher.
Now, I told you they were lurking outside Command Center throughout all of those early engagements, and shout out to them for not getting caught up in that trap, prioritizing holding something that would allow them to get a solid rotation in, so as well as 9 Lives. Someone does approach them from the back, and Dynasty, he's going to fall. Awoke an actual half HP, and it's going to be Laser from above, throwing the Arc Stars, praying for a Hail Mary, and unfortunately just cannot get it together. Los Licks, PBV, this is the onslaught that we were wanting. Another glorious endgame.
And this is looking really good for PBV. They hold just the chunk of high ground that is left to them off this ramp. The push, not wanting to get too far out, still does leave their teammate recoverable. There's not a lot of cover provided by this smoke anymore. 1 HP left on Horizon. Will they get behind in time? Los Licks are just going on the push right now, recognizing weakness. Well, they've got it in their opponents. Yozi almost finds the finish. PVV go down before too much longer. Los Licks get to play the remainder of this fence line before pushing up and claiming the loot that is now rightfully theirs.
Bloodhound scan going to show that this is a relatively clean area. Meanwhile, Evolution have also fallen. You look at where the teams lie. Los Licks on the right-hand side of your screen with a couple rocks for cover, and the collapse of Pen 5 and the rest of the teams here inside Stormcatcher. Now talk to me about the reinforcement, but the black hole breaks it. The piercing spikes trying to kind of trap that team in there, utilizing the double controller legends. That Catalyst Watson combo can be deadly. But now that team inside has expended the coveted black hole.
Have time to move up to replace this door. Reinforcement from Catalyst goes out. Just like that, Pen 5 are safe once again. Just a little bit of high ground left here for them. Chatamus Prime may have to drop down and fight Oblivion if they're not able to take Pen 5 out of here.
Pen 5 could drop. There is an engagement on the low ground. They look to
Doing
third
it.
party as Oblivion has fallen. The perfect timing. The call coming into Presley, already able to grab one of those moments, but the Dark Veil comes a little bit too slowly because Los Licks has decided this is the moment they will push. Now in that 3v3, v2, and just kidding, they've already fallen. Now it's the final 2 squads. Los Licks should be able to clean this up with ease.
Just controlling the little bit of Catalyst wall that is left in zone. Digi-threat not even needed at this range as we jump straight into the welcoming arms of an R99. And Los Licks pick up the first win on Storm Point. A great finish for them as they just started this game, putting Elevate down and finish it with a win that nobody could question. They control the outside of the ring, and every other team makes the suboptimal decision to fight each other instead of looking at Los Licks.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate, but shout out to Los Licks for positioning themselves in that advantageous spot, right? If everyone's going to be collapsing and not even looking at where Los Licks is, because they can't. You cannot prioritize putting shots down on Los Licks and preventing them from pushing to that spot because you are so worried about what is going on. And for the teams that were up in Stormcatcher, your only choice once that ring started to collapse was to kind of drop down off the high ground, which we know in late game is never good.
Yeah, I mean, I would go so far as to say that outside of match point, playing for second is just as good as playing for first, because so often second comes with the kills that you're then sacrificing your life for. That was the play from Pen 5, because as you talk about, you can't really fire up at Los Licks. Nicely done from all of the teams involved in that end game, but it is an end game that Los Licks needed to clean up and did. So let's take a look at the standings and see how far that got them.
I mean, things are shaking up. Things are shaking up. Now, mind you, 41 points was what Elevate had after 2 games. We are now finished with 4, and they're at 44. So it has allowed a lot of the teams on the leaderboard to kind of make a play for that. And now Pen 5, who have yet to win a game, have found themselves at the top of the leaderboard. Now, you would say, hey, you know, you talk about those elimination kills, the consistency inside the top 5, the top 3. Consistency will prevail just like it did earlier in EMEA.
Now, this is a remarkably close lobby still, as 46 points ain't that far off from Redeem in 4th, and neither is it that far away from even SKTT2 in 6th or 9 Lives in 7th. That trickle down makes it so that really anyone in the top 8 with a solid win, and not even that far of a win, just a nice win with a few KP, can overtake Pen 5, all other things being equal. So, we'll see how the rest of the lobby continues, but we've got 2 games left. Pen 5 currently lead, but it is not by a safe margin.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Apex Legends Global Series preseason qualifiers. We've already seen who will advance from Qualifier 1, from APAC North, from APAC South, from EMEA this morning. We have one more to send on just from this week alone. I am SpiderTip, that's Dia, and we are about to move on to kind of that Game 5, Game 6, where the stakes get really high, especially when you outline just how close a lot of our teams are.
That's certainly true, and as you talked about, this closeness in the standings is what makes these last two games a nail-biter. Let's go ahead and bring up the standings to illustrate exactly how true this is. For even as we were talking about, down to 8th, it is not that far off of a win that you need in order to move yourself up to first, and Los Lakes have certainly jumped so far after just their singular win that it's not hard to imagine they could do it again.
Yeah, speaking of that jump, they were outside the top 15 coming into game number 4. And with that trajectory for them, maybe that win was what they needed to kind of light a fire and say, hey, you know, we've got this. We're in our element. Storm Point is what we feel more comfortable on, and they can carry that on. But after this game, this is where it is going to kind of make or break these teams that have found themselves inside that top 8. For Elevate Gaming, have only been able to acquire 3 points over the past 2 matches. This is make or break for them. They need to have a solid performance here and fight their way into that end game as they so did on those first 2 matches. Just that fight that they took, that ego chow push in game 4, just was not necessarily to their strong suit. But I don't recommend necessarily changing things up. It's maybe take a little bit smarter fights on these last 2 maps.
Yeah, and it is as simple as that. We discussed this a bit on the EMEA that broadcast this morning, but what can often happen, be it in Challenger Circuit or in preseason qualifiers, is that you get used to just winning fights because you're better. You face off against a lot of teams, and not all of those teams have competitive experience. Not all of those teams have players that can measure up to your caliber, and you can absolutely get away with sprinting through lobbies as a team that is professional or close to professional level. But when you get into the finals, that caliber of game takes a big step up because it is everyone that has managed to move through those other lobbies like a hot knife through butter. And now that you're here, you do have to play respectfully. You do have to wait for chunks to come in. You have to make sure that nobody else is going to third party you, because if you are not crossing your I's and dotting your T's here, you can't be expected to do it in Pro League.
That's true. And that's where you're going to be heading if you can find yourself atop the leaderboard after the next 2 games. And as we gear up for match number 5, we get a good look at where that first initial zone will be. And honestly, I like the look of what I'm seeing. A relatively central plane line and a good chunk of that hot zone, the checkpoint, Ceto station. Now, what I will say is we really haven't seen too many engagements in Ceto itself. The engagement at Pylon is something that we're going to need to take an eye on. Nukes have been a little lackluster to say, and I would really like to see maybe them turn their strides up for the final 2 games.
Yeah, and this is still, relatively new team, figuring out what exactly they're good at, but like you talk about, clocks ticking. In order to actually qualify for Pro League, if you want to do it this week and not rely on those cumulative points, it's going to be a whole lot easier if you can figure out exactly how you want to approach fights sooner than later. Nukes have high ground, which is going to do them a lot of favors, but at the same time, it keeps things ambiguous. Where do they actually drop down? When do they find a safe place to move? And this seems to be it. Prodigy Aces on the front foot. Plenty of space, plenty of health with the purple shield.
All I can think about is how I actually hear the teams like running beneath them, and I'm like, wow. All right, not only is Pylon boosted in all of the shields and loot that is to offer, but also sound as Prodigy takes a nice engagement, deals significant damage, turns the tides, throws the PK in their face. On Fearless, clean up Chatamus Prime with ease. Now, mind you, this was a little bit different for them in game number 4, so winning that is going to be vital as we turn our tides to the mill. Your Reese, though, that clutch factor that often happens in those nice 3v3 engagements, well, is down. So We're looking to Vudo and Yasto to be able to try and go, but the good thing here about that Bloodhound, you can scan and initially gauge where people are before you try to get that res, and prioritizing that is beautiful. Up and at 'em,
Now they
shield swap to go.
Both teams trade reses, but high ground belongs to the BR Kittens. Evolution gonna try and bait them in, much like we saw Redeem do in the last game to multiple squads. See if you can force an error by setting yourself up to cover angles as teams are forced to push into you instead of trying to, say, climb up.
Ooh, little Watson fence, easily destroyed though.
Scan. They have room. They have cover.
Crap. They've got the
Evolution
high
have
ground.
High ground.
Oh, and the dance of the horizons begin as Vudo uses the Havoc to catch completely off guard. Meanwhile, Euris, and they're able to just take this engagement from so many angles, and hanging around has fallen elsewhere, but this should be easy for them. That is quite impressive. Now Euris, formerly just a smidge ago, had that wide shield, now upgraded to purple as Vudo has finally found the last member, and BR Kittens will fall, but not before the incoming longbow. I'm not laughing, I just know the pain that is. You're just trying to live. You're just trying to live, and there's always someone sitting with a longbow.
The tough thing about getting sniped at as well is that it doesn't even feel respectful when it happens. There's no gentleman's snipe that is exposing yourself to risk at the same time as you push up. A snipe is always done from a position of advantage, a position of power, and it doesn't feel good to be punched down on.
No, it really doesn't.
Like
but
that.
I'm enjoying it. Like, this is S2. This is what they are doing. Reigning supreme on the high ground here at Down Beast. And unfortunately, Z Davis from Redeem, you were just unfortunately caught in the mix. But you were able to have your catalyst reinforce that door. The likelihood of Z Davis being rezzed and about back on his feet is significant here.
It's 100%. Nobody else is pushing for the moment. Actually, you know what? I'm going to take that down to 99%. There is a 1% chance that he said something in this heat of the moment that will anger his teammates to the point that they will not res him.
What do you think it was?
1% chance.
1%?
1%. Z Davis is a pretty nice guy.
I was gonna say, super nice. I'm all about the redemption arc. You said it earlier.
Oh, you
just
think that 1% is like too high?
I think so. Maybe like a 0.25. But I mean, after getting taken down by a rogue longbow, Larry, it probably went up to 5%.
I'm a pretty nice guy. I've said some things when I get taken down by longbow, Larry.
Yeah,
Z Davis may.
It's okay. He's back on his feet. No one pushed. We're just having a little bit of a non-gentlemanly like engagement. And 7Z, they have taken the high ground over there. It's impressive. Typically you can find some good weapons for long range on that catwalk as well, but Carter and Void from S2, they don't really have to move just yet. They're on that outer edge of the ring. There's a team underneath them. There's a team in front of them. We knew there were plenty of engagements over at the mill. Now, we haven't really seen what happened to Euris and Co. from that rogue longbow. If they were able to get a nice reset, but for that, we're going to hit the trenches.
Probably looking for a res, as many other teams might be doing soon. SKTT2 taking space with Rampart walls, but eating nades in the meantime. Have Trev stacks down. No more walls for them, as that is the one really, truly effective thing into Rampart, is unfortunately grenades. And Oblivion abuse that fact and push on in to clean up Trev stacks. He's got a secondary knock on the way through.
Quite impressive for Oblivion there, and Crows kind of making their way out. You can see just in the checkpoint, there is a team, the high ground. You know they're looking down on this and saying, do we extend out? Do we make a push for this? Because where Oblivion has positioned themselves into Northpad, they have a ring console at their back. All they have to do is bide their time, hit that scan, and initially get that next information. But for Euris and Co., we were asking about what was going on with them post-Longbow Larry. Well, they're all back on their feet, making their way towards that building just to the outskirts of the mill.
The res seems to have gone out without a hitch, and boys push up to the mill. Evolution have no further need of it, already got the loot, already got the kills that they wanted throughout the early course of this game, and they're disengaging over towards checkpoint to figure out how to actually play out these remaining couple of zones. And that's where it's going to be a little bit tricky. We have teams that are prioritizing different areas of the map. We've got S2 over in Downed Beast, where 7Z and Oblivion actually think this is going over towards North Pad. Evolution, without a zone read of their own, or perhaps they might have gotten one. I'm not sure if they had time with the res. Have started to move over through checkpoint, be it for kills, be it for playing through low ground, moving over towards Downed Beast. This is going to be a game where teams that have predicted over towards North Pad are likely going to fight over these small little octagonal areas, these trenches, as you called them earlier. And teams that are approaching from the south are going to have to contend with this low ground that comes out of checkpoint.
Hear me out. There's a couple fights that are about to break out. One in particular is going to be the mill here. There is a team that is occupying the mill, but there is a ring console here that TSMX so desperately wants to get that information. Evolution, though, in the meantime, is rotating into checkpoint where LBJ has been occupying, but there's a survey beacon there. So a lot of information that teams are wanting to acquire for themselves to be able to hedge their bets and make sure that their rotation towards that next zone is the priority one. And Evolution here, every time I see Evolution, I keep thinking of Eevees and like Sylveon and Umbreon, and that is all my brain is occupying right now.
That I'm doing exactly the same thing. That's surely what they're named for, right? Otherwise, you would just spell evolution.
Yeah, you'll never know. You'll never know.
Yeah.
But I feel like Reese, he's giving me Umbreon vibes today.
Okay, I don't know what that means. What is an Umbreon vibe?
You don't know what an Umbreon is?
I don't know what an Umbreon. I know what an Eevee is. It's the cute little,
Yeah,
fox thing. Yeah.
We're gonna enlighten you one day. But meanwhile, slowly inching forward onto LBJ. Smoke and cover, smoke and run, dodge into the building, stay relatively full health, and wait till you find that kind of good opening to take LBJ by storm. You've already dodged that oncoming Bangalore ultimate. It has pushed them further onto the low ground. Now, once you get kind of towards this choke point and into spiders, it can be a very tumultuous engagement, but LBJ wants no part of that, and Reese is full sending.
Reese got that digi confidence. He is walking like a man who knows he can see one way through smokes and does manage to clear out all of checkpoint. Credit to him. 2 last remaining members still flee the scene as E8 get to jump on in from above over towards the trenches that we discussed. This isn't a abysmal position, but it certainly isn't a powerful one for Elevate, one that they'll want to transition into something a little bit more active over the next couple of minutes.
Yeah, I feel like these bunkers are just a transitional area that you want to just kind of touch base in, reassess the situations, look for information of where teams are kind of outlying and find themselves before you move on to that next position. Now, Los Licks, on the other hand, your winners of game number 4, the team that actually took down Elevate Gaming in Game 4 early on, have positioned themselves in such an interesting area, right? They got the ring information, and they're taking just that back half of Downed Beast. Now, whether they play this low ground or kind of position themselves near that tower in front of them, but you see, anyone that goes to push on them from that northeastern side is going to have to come through open water and will likely not survive.
Yeah, a spot like this is really good, looks actually really good on paper, and while it has a lot of that survivability capability, the biggest difference is that here, Catalyst can change a lot of that, and Los Licks do have to be careful, should they choose to hold this area, that they don't suffer from the same thing that many teams that hold high ground do, where the position is so enviable that multiple teams converge on them for the opportunity of taking it away. It's for this reason that I really like that Los Licks stay away from holding on to the point and bunkering down there, and instead play around the far side of Downed Beast.
Well, Evolution, still chasing for that engagement, now have made themselves kind of just on the most southern point, these 3 buildings that are just south of checkpoint. And fighting around them could be quite entertaining. Drop in Gaming, boys also fallen down to the final 13, but Vudo just needs to find maybe the ground that they can just kind of state their claim on, but that ring is going to start collapsing and pushing them to the choke point that they've got outlined in the mini map. This is an engagement that they need to take and end as quickly as possible so they can prioritize getting through this and out through the open.
Udo staying mobile, keeps Evolution moving. With the round starting to close, they're going to turn around, shoot out this evac tower, force the team through them. I believe it happens in time. We'll see what the dive trails show us, as right now I'm not seeing any.
Here we go. TSM Max, though, have to go by foot. And Talos has already fallen at the hands of Euresa's team. The issue is going to be, should any team decide to be playing the other side of this mountain, they're just going to swoop in and kind of sandwich in Eureka and Co., which is going to be rather unfortunate to them, because you know that we have a longbow user on the top of Down Beast who has likely not moved.
Envy, next to no time. This ring finally closes in, where right in front, they've actually done quite a bit of damage. Unfortunately, Senvi's not going to survive, and Enemigo can still climb up and finish this team off. Evolution, perhaps about to go down. Longbow shots raining in from afar, but it's TS Max to bite the dust first. And Evolution should, and I say should, be able to reset, but it's not a certainty.
Yeah, see, it's right there. Void and Co. are basically just looking down the sights of the longbow onto them. Now, should they be able to hit that rotation, they're going to need the smokes. They're going to need all the utility that they can get. And the last we checked in, when we were looking at our teams that were kind of making their way out of North Pad through Checkpoint, well, Elevate Gaming, they have fallen. They have not made it to this kind of next area. And Pen 5, who has moved in, that still needs to navigate their way towards Down Beast further. The top of the leaderboard, still alive.
This is where Pen 5 have really excelled, is playing in pseudo-passive positions with the Watson, and making sure that they gatekeep effectively, or hold onto their position and play active poke. In this particular case, though, without the zone closing in on them, the fact they've managed to save the Catalyst wall all the way up until this point actually might be the difference between them living and dying. Otherwise, they surely go down, but this cat wall at a crucial time is saving them for a moment from S2. They've just got to watch their backs now, but they're in the ring.
They definitely are, and honestly, having Hambino on the Watson is going to prove to be so beneficial here, right? You can just start controlling a lot of this space. You think back to the EMEA region during Pro League in the regular season, how many teams with Watson will play around this tail area with the fences and the pylons. Now, 7Z will fall. S2 is still on top. We also have nukes that have made their way. That's going to be the team that Pen 5 is actually shooting at. That's kind of in the opening to the underneath of the Down Beast.
LBJ starting to encroach on S2 territory, are going to take the high ground, not wanting to opt into Los Licks, but they are coming up right behind Pen 5, I believe it was? Yes, Pen 5, who just moved in below them. Be a big problem for Pen 5, as they've got to deal with high ground now. S2 taking up a lot of that focus as both squads fight for control of this carapace.
Reese grabs the opening onto Pen 5, but there's too many teams looking to get into that engagement. It's LBJ, the duo, that is going to take out not only Pen 5 and Evolution through a swift third party and rack up a good chunk of eliminations, hitting that grav lift, looking for a place to reset. F2 in the distance with the snipers, with the 30-30s, have just opened themselves into that line of sight. You're kind of just poking a beast that you really didn't want to mess with just yet. Now, can you coexist up here? Probably not. I'd imagine that S2, oh, and they've got a Kraber, and it is going to swing true there, but it's not necessarily going to be enough because you've just opened yourself to every team in the lobby.
Yeah, getting hit with the crossfire does take you down a notch, but does not spell the end just yet. Still plenty of ways for LBJ to recover, be it as a duo, be it as a solo. Redeem, however, go down in 5th place. Only 4 squads left, and we're not even in the final round yet.
This is tough, right? Pen 5 is down, Elevate is out, Redeem is out. That opens the leaderboard for massive change. And Los Licks, who found themselves outside the top 15 after game 3, they took a win in game number 4, and they're slowly climbing, finding themselves in the top 4 here. But Nukes, we talked about it earlier, they needed a massive play here. They're gonna need the best 2 games of their life right now to get to that top of the leaderboard, coming into this with 8 points.
They've gelled all the way to this point, needing to figure things out on an accelerated schedule just for a chance at Pro League. They're jumping on over to Los Licks. This is a relatively isolated fight, and LBJ are putting pressure on S2. This rivalry continues.
LBJ is sitting in the same position as Nuke score-wise and finding themselves in dire need of as many points as possible. But if Los Licks go to back here on Storm Point, they could find themselves at the top of the leaderboard with 1 map away from an auto qual spot. But they've got to get through this end game first. It's such a solid position, and honestly a dark veil to meet as we kind of dabble through the darkness, looking for any good damage. They are able to get a knock onto James Fearless to turn the tide. The damage goes out from Den Pride. We just need to finish this off before the remaining squads get a hold of this.
Den Pride flirts with that edge of the Dark Veil for so long, and the delay on taking out this last member is actually pretty nice. In fact, it may have been a little too soon as a res was attempted to come through, but Los Licks aren't able to finish it. S2 send on to them. LBJ, I'm sure, swiftly behind, but is only a duo. S2 have suffered no losses, and there are only 2 members left standing in their way.
And then you have to think about LBJ, decided to come out of the fray finally in a 2v3 scenario. The odds are going to be stacked against them, and S2, who have taken the top of Down Beast for an eternity, look to provide benefit on that. They're able to grab a knock, but still 2v1. Can they make it happen? They do with ease. Honestly, well deserved. If you are going to sit on top of the Down Beast for the entire game and you can convert that, well done.
And on the other side of this, of course, a well-deserved second place to LBJ, who manufacture themselves control of Downed Beast, being the only team to even make S2 slightly uncomfortable. This cascade of teams, however, that move down off of this giant beast and over towards Los Licks is exactly what we talked about when we saw Los Licks set up there initially. It's a great endgame spot, and that means that when pressed up against the wall, teams are going to go for it.
The fact that they went so long into that game and were able to grab a lot of eliminations through a lot of the teams kind of rotating through that area, and you think back to the early fight with Pen 5, with Evolution, kind of just going out a little bit earlier than maybe they would have liked. You can only imagine what that did there for the leaderboard. So let's go ahead and pull that up, because I have questions that need answers, and who is it going to be? The fact that Pen 5 and Elevate are still up here neck and neck is crazy, but it's the journey throughout these games from Los Licks, Dia.
Yeah, somehow the leaderboards just keep getting closer. Redeem even is not that far off, and with just their single game win so far, any of these teams could very well take it. Drop In Gaming have 1 round left to try and find those big high kill rounds that they were getting in the semifinals, and Oblivion, still 37 points, could take today with 1, albeit big, game. So we'll see what happens, as round 6 is just a few minutes away, and that's what will really determine who is going to Pro League, who's punching their ticket today.
All right, Apex Legends fans, it's time. We're about to jump into game number 6, and we have had one of the closest preseason qualifiers on that leaderboard that I have seen so far this year. And that's because, Dia, it is only qualifier number 1. I can't believe it. Year 4 is here, and we're about to find out our first North American qualifier to Pro League.
It is so nice to get the season started now, even though Pro League starts in late January. Just setting the stage bit by bit is exactly what's going on. And as you say, fortunate that it starts today because I don't know how much longer I could have gone on without the ALGS. So let's go ahead and bring up the standings and see who's in contention for qualifying themselves into the Pro League today.
Now, this is tough, right? With it being a 10-point differential here in the top 5, anything can happen. So keep your eyes on that kill feed. Should the team that you favor or you find themselves in the top 3 go down early, it opens the door for a lot of teams. So people are definitely going to have a target on Pen 5, Elevate Gaming, Los Licks, Redeem, and Drop In Gaming. Now, Drop In Gaming hailed from semifinals lobby 2 and put up a monumental performance north of 100 points. Now, the performance is looking a little different. You might say, hey, where was the drop off? Well, Dia mentioned earlier that the lobbies change. The lobbies adapt. Once you get into the finals lobby, it is so different. And to be finding yourself within grasps of that top spot is so, so good. Now, mind you, even if you don't get the top spot, there's another way to qualify, and it's through those point systems, which Dia said earlier. 4 teams will advance at the end of the qualifiers based on points alone.
Yeah, and that is the thing that you can hold on to, especially if you are Pen 5, Elevate, Los Licks. You can't get let the pressure of this last game get to you, especially because some folks up here are lacking in a bit of competitive experience, and high pressure situations are places where new competitors often crumble. So if I'm an AGL of one of these squads, if I'm even remotely related, if I'm their sister, brother, whatever, I am sending messages saying, listen, really do not worry about this game. You've done your job today, especially if you're already in the top 5. The likelihood that you'll drop out of top 10 or even out of top 7 is extraordinarily low. Continue to accumulate these points, play your best Apex Legends, and that doesn't just go for teams in the top 5, but it goes for every team in this lobby. Even BR Kittens currently sat at the bottom of the leaderboard with just a few positions of improvement based on their best Apex Legends, can get themselves significantly more points to save up for the weeks to come.
They definitely can. And hey, at the end of the day, one team will know for sure that they will be playing in Pro League come January, and they don't have to stress through the rest of the preseason qualifiers. But it is time as we go through character selection for our final match of the day. And to no surprise, it looks like a lot of our teams are just electing to pick the tried and true, what they have been consistent with throughout the entire day. Only, I believe, 2 conduits in the lobby, and TSMX being one of them. They've had a really tough journey today. A lot of early game contests and just kind of frivolous fighting. And honestly, I think their limit testing might come back a lot stronger in preseason qualifier number 2.
Yeah, that's certainly possible, and I expect that from many of our squads that may be experiencing finals for the first time, or at the very least, the first time in a long time. Because while we've been getting slightly bloodier early games than we were at the end of Year 3's Challenger Circuit number 4, and even leading into LCQ, teams might be itching for a fight more now, but once you realize how many variables you can control later on, once everybody else takes a chill pill, plays for the win, as we talked about, playing for that win or second place, both very viable, just figuring out exactly how squads around you are going to react is really the key component here. We are going to see, once again, a contest over by Mill, and it looks like Jump Master Diff has Evolution losing out on the initial drop.
Ooh, forced to not take the bins, and Nyx is going to get that gold shield right off the rip. Yasto does find a blue, but so far, not necessarily full sending. It's going to be Evolution who loses out on Voodoo, which is rather unfortunate, but that is just the way that it goes. Meanwhile, TSMX able to eliminate hanging around on their contest.
Nyx get the little tickle around this door. and React should be able to push together as Boca does almost go down, and Nyx actually has to stick around on this side to keep his teammate safe. React gets sandwiched in a crossfire. BR Kittens overplay their hand, and Nyx has one member left to clutch up against. Hitting purple on the other side. The Hemlock can do work, but around this corner, it's getting difficult to peek. Evolution go down. Third party has come in, and while BR Kittens do not have a support to craft banners, they also don't have time to stick around.
The really unfortunate about the mill contest is that Down Beast is so close that if someone loots up really quickly and just decides to immediately push, this is what happens. And now with the last member of BR Kittens kind of trying to run in the open, well, the boys, you can only chase so far. At some point, it gets to be the point where, you know what, just let them go. Focus on your game.
We already got one free kill, okay? It's literally free. And a whole nother POI's worth of loot. Because if you think about it, third partying off drops, super effective. All that time you normally spend wasting time running around a POI to collect the loot, it's all right there in 3 boxes.
Ooh, but peep the zone as we get a good look at it. We are going to potentially see some new POI endgames, and that could be quite entertaining if I do say so myself. Well, you see Elevate's position to that zone. We needed a good game for them to clinch that top spot of the leaderboard, and they are going to have priority to that. Now, the only issue is their play style is very much outside of zone, getting as much information and fighting in last minute. Now, should they be gifted a zone, will that change the tide for them here on Stormpoint?
Very well could. We've seen a lot of teams try and play the center of zone and have it go a bit awry in that mid game where a lot of our squads, as a result of early fighting, have more room to navigate than you would normally expect. But Pen 5 could be one of those who set themselves up as having the second zone read already. They are traversing a lot of open territory to get themselves into a better position. When you have to imagine that be a little bit further south in some of these buildings that we currently see SKTT2 set up inside.
Pen 5 hitting that rotation. Not going to be too bad, but it's going to be Los Licks that's already over here as well on that high ground, utilizing those piercing veils to kind of try to solidify anyone that looks to take that zip up. Now, Los Licks, mind you, they're currently sitting in third place with 42 points. And Pen 5, if I am them, I want to take out Los Licks early on. But also, I don't want to get in any frivolous fights because I have 50 points and I'm only holding the top of the leaderboard by 1. So it's really on that IGL's job to keep an eye on what is going on in that kill feed, keeping and remembering which teams are dying and knowing where you need to position yourselves and saying, okay, well, this is the tough part, Dia. No one ever talks about that. Being able to read the kill feed, try to do some quick math, knowing what you need while hanging on to the mental fortitude and trying to shoot straight.
Yeah. And let's not forget, sometimes micromanaging the people around you, because that's just what needs to be done. For the moment, it's going to be all right, as not a whole lot of teams have sandwiched themselves in, but it's where you have a little bit of room, a little maneuverability early on to see if over in Echo HQ you can pick up some cheeky early kills, perhaps get yourself a better position, because right now, Los Licks, they have the run of the mill, and I guess no pun intended, because the mill is actually a place they could be. We're nowhere near there. But what they do have is a lot of high ground and great cover with 2 respawn beacons and a trident all positioned on top of Echo HQ.
And we saw just how well S2 performed after nabbing the high ground at Down Beast. They converted that into a win. Now, let's say Los Licks is able to maintain the high ground and then just get very lucky with those end game pulls and they can reign on top for as long as possible. Could turn the tides and let them get as many points. Now, mind you, 8 points are all they need to tie Pen 5.
Not a
But we
whole lot.
need more. 9.
Yeah. It's funny because, well, it doesn't seem like a whole lot. Getting to 15 is only going to get you 1 point. Each kill is evading a lot of teams now, so we're getting a bit more conservative play in this final game. Is only going to get you 1 point. Having to stack 8 of those while hoping that your rivals do not is a pretty difficult task.
Almost 3 full teams But S2 making their way on their rotation, trying to jump over Frost Kisixin. Carter does take a good chunk of damage losing out on that shield, but luckily able to keep that life and now seek to regain that with a gold shield. You only need to pop 2 cells, so not too bad in any way, shape, or form, and they can turn their attention onto the team that will be rotating in by foot. Now, this is critical, especially for Elevate here. Now, mind you, they are in second place with 49 points. They have to win this engagement to keep it alive.
And they certainly seem set on taking it. The initial grab lift won't keep Zach out, but looking to walk in right now. No disruptor rounds on this alternator. Gets a singular scan. Goes for the push. Loses 125 HP. And Zach is running. But Shubi and Zapdo, they're doing the same thing just in. As following up on the space that Zach created, Elevate managed to take out 7Z.
Shubi, man. Shubi is so vital to a lot of these fights. It is so impressive to see Shubi's journey throughout Challenger Circuit, dabbling on Pro League teams, kind of just making the way and making a name for himself. Yet I feel like Shubi is still incredibly underrated.
By many people. We saw a few attempts at poaching Shub towards the end of last season by multiple teams, but has for the most part stayed consistent ever since being picked up out of the Challenger Circuit, and it's worked well for a lot of squads as this fragger who you can let off the leash a little bit. I've seen a few IGLs describe that with the way that they manage their fraggers, and Shub is certainly one of those people that you can give creative liberty to.
Creative liberty, creative freedom. I like that for Shubi. But meanwhile, Los Licks over here, not only do they have the natural cover of the piercing spikes, just kind of isolating any kind of walk-up spots or should anyone hit a grab lift above them, but they're also calling in mobile respawn beacons to try and also anchor down any bit of cover, because other areas of the map with all of the new changes, there's a lot of vertical lines of sight that you have to be aware of, especially when you position yourselves on that ultimate high ground, because there's not really any nooks and crannies that you can find yourself behind.
They've done this from very early on, knowing that this ring is pulling almost directly on top of them. And while there is some slight variation here, the fact that everyone has piled into Echo HQ has left Nukes largely alone. There are several zones that will pull a little further towards Nukes, and clearly not over all the way to them, but closer to the gravity cannon by drop-in gaming, where Nukes will have priority rotate, so there is still a way for them to enter this game in a way that doesn't require them to frag out on edge.
If it pulls to that, remember before all the changes when that was formerly Antenna and you would get that end game zone that would encompass that grav cannon, that is one of the worst zones to play. Now, if Nukes can keep pylon clear and avoid anyone trying to rotate through them, I'm looking at Redeem getting a little crazy back there, they should be okay. But LBJ looking to be the thorn in this team's side as round 2 ring is closing. They are getting peppered and gate-kept themselves, so here comes that negative rotate. They're chasing the team in front of them and trying to stay out of cover.
Yeah, in through round 2, it is going to hurt a little bit, but there are medkits here, and fortunately enough, a catalyst wall to make this healing all the safer despite the shots that are being peppered in behind them. Do still have to move through Jurassic for both of these teams to try and access the next zone, and it doesn't look like LBJ are going to make this easy. They've got priority on the rotation, and Crafter is in Jurassic, so we should see these teams leave each other alone. LBJ will still be mirrored, albeit a bit more loosely.
These two teams do find themselves kind of outside the top 10, but they're vying for any semblance of points that they can take on that journey. The real question is, where are our teams that are vying at the top of the leaderboard? But you gotta get that evac tower in and try your best to get back into zone.
Yeah, sticking to medkit right now will mean that the evac tower is a bit delayed, or rather the take on it is, giving other teams an opportunity to shoot it out. Something that should be mitigated by the specific placement of it, but we'll see in the kill feed how it actually works out, because Zone is certainly unforgiving enough that you cannot stick around as LBJ any longer. Boys instead have taken an evac tower of their own and rotated up to cut off PBV, those who chose to take the rotate away from LBJ. See how long they're able to survive, as right now it isn't looking good for the boys, who have lost one and now lost two.
Darks now on the lonesome. The lone boy left. At this point, you just have to try and play your life, but you're going to be hunted by the two remaining members of PBV, and just like that, an R9 reigns supreme. The boys will be eliminated, the banner will be recovered, but this is another engagement, right? You've got Golden, Vosky, and Z Davis. That is Redeem. They are currently in 4th place. So surviving and taking down as many elimination points as you possibly can right here are going to really hoist yourself up the leaderboard. Golden grabbing that opening knock.
Shots could be able to actually finish this kill, as it doesn't look like there's really anywhere to retreat to, but we'll see how this goes as Redeem are pushing up on the other side, and Golden needs to be sure to anchor for Z Davis and Voski. S2 go down. May have been the last squad in this area as Redeem visibly relax, moving on together. One member left, James Fearless goes down, and Nukes follow suit. Nukes, the very team that we were talking about that had priority on Redeem's position, put themselves a bit too far into this corner.
It's actually really interesting because, mind you, both of these teams were in Pylon or just on the outskirts of it and wanted to hold this entire area of the zone should it pull. And that mini-map gave us an inkling of where that zone is pulling. And honestly, Elevate will be able to position themselves quite nicely. They just need to find the perfect position. Now, no stranger to playing fence lines and off angles. It's what they kind of did on that Skyhook ending. While LBJ, PBV have fallen, but a lot of the main players of this entire qualifier are still in it.
Yes, Seer still in play as well. Really curious, since that appears to be getting into the end game, how much value Seer can actually get in an end game. Now that we've seen so many nerfs to this legend, what do SKTT2 do against, or with, rather, something like this? They are playing on the high ground for right now, and Rampart Loba has made the games look pretty easy for them so far. Redeem hold height and have priority rotation on Gravity Cannon, but Drop-In Gaming may swoop in and take it first.
This is tough looking at that kind of lay of the land. Loslick still on the top here. Redeem holding so much space, and it is looking so good for them. Should everything fall into their way, it might be a win. But before that, we've got to keep our eye on Pen 5, who still needs to rotate towards that next circle, which this is literally that Skyhook zone all over again, just with less buildings in play. So keep an eye, that fence line all the way to the right with the back of the mountain, Elevate. Should they be able to survive kind of the collapse on these two buildings right here, it might prove really beneficial for them because they could pick up a lot of eliminations.
Most Licks have relocated the Trident. Redeem fighting. 9 lies. Going pretty low.
Oh, this is critical. Z Davis, we've got to keep you up. Golden, able to throw down so much damage, but unfortunately it will not be enough, and they will fall. And 9 lies. A well-timed push, knowing that this position in zone will be critical to that end game, but unfortunately Redeem will not be able to unseat any of the leaders thus far. Now Loslicks must leave the high ground, but not before they hop into the Trident, pulling something akin to Fast and the Furious, but Den Pride has fallen, and BR Kittens as well has been eliminated, but this is mission critical to the success of Loslicks.
I mean, I have never seen a Trident like that, almost kamikazeing into the center of the zone. They do lose Den Pride, but somehow, Los Licks, as a team, managed to survive the brief engagement that they had with almost every squad in the lobby. They're still hanging out around the bins, and there's an entire other fight that's gone off on the top side that they seem to be getting re-involved in, and if I'm reading it correctly. Elevate are still playing the outside of the fence line, as you talked about earlier, conservatively, picking their moment, but they will have to pick one sooner than later because they do not have a spot in the next zone.
They have to pick their moment, so long as it's not a Mazer moment. Drop-in Gaming has fallen. Shh, don't laugh. It's fine. Everything is fine. There's a piercing spike there that's gonna not allow them to jump up, but they're taking that engagement onto Los Licks. Now, this is the second and third place teams kind of going at it, but Elevate has already picked up at least 2 KP for this engagement, but Zach lingers in the sight lines just a little bit too long, has to disengage, but is able to get the shield back up.
And Elevate fish out a Horizon ult during that time as well. They give up their position, yes, but they get a critical cooldown out of the way and still have Bloodhound ult available for this eventual engagement they're going to have to take onto high ground. Los Licks still in front of them, but with Chickus down, that cannot be for much longer. Pen 5 are fending off multiple squads at the moment, Elevate being one of them. But with control of the fence line for now, it's Chase that needs to hit a quick, or rather slow heal, it appears, as Hambino dances on rooftops.
Los Licks has at least 2 members down with 1 left standing. Elevate have turned their tide, inching ever so closely towards that next zone, but it's Pen 5 that is in front of them. TSMX has fallen, but that's okay because there's still 3 major players left in the game. It's coming down to all of the placement points, all of the eliminations, just mere shreds of points, but Zapdo gets caught off guard. They try to rotate in front of the teams, but he will go down. Now Zach Mazer able to turn around and grab a knock onto Cape, and Pen 5 has fallen. Zach, what are you doing?
Manages to keep the team alive for now. Shubi hits a quick smoke, still has knockdown shields to place, still has med kits to pop. E8 are not being pushed yet. They're slowly being whittled down by 9 Lives as Los Licks have just 1 member left as well. It's a 9 Lives victory, almost certainly, but they don't know exactly where to push. They don't know where's safe to push.
I'm pretty sure Los Licks is going to fall here to 9 Lives, and they do just that. Shubi may have done enough for Elevate, because it doesn't matter at this point. 9 Lives came in with 31 points, and yes, they won map number 6, but will things shake up? Did Elevate do enough, Dia?
With the kills, specifically that Zach got at the end of that, this may have been... what's the opposite of a Mazer moment? I don't know. It has yet to be defined, because those points would very well have pushed them up to the top. Now, we know Pen 5 made it very far as well, but even before this, the leaderboard had these 2 teams so incredibly close. I honestly can't predict. I cannot rightly say who came out on top of that.
Ooh, that would be really interesting, Dia. That would be really interesting. I would love to hear predictions, but when we tuned in with Pen 5, right before kind of the ultimate ending there, I didn't see a chunk of eliminations. And when they came into game number 6, they only had 50 points, which was only 1 point ahead of Elevate. So I'm a little excited to see who was able to survive the gauntlet of preseason qualifier number 1. Who gets to advance on with that moment already happened for them. They can just sit back and they chill. They don't have to play in any more qualifiers, Dia.
It is a prize that is so sought after that we do it 4 times. And then we give out the extra. You've done very well, and you get to continue. But only 1 was available today. Only 1 spot in the Pro League. Not just after these 6 games, but after a whole weekend of playing. Came down to Pen 5, Elevate, Los Licks, Redeem. Everybody was in the mix. Let's find out who took the win.
Hey, yo.
And congratulations!
It's Elevate Gaming. They were able to do enough. Those eliminations that Zach was able to secure through that end game was everything that they needed. Congratulations, Zach Mazer, Shubi. Y'all are back in Pro League. Let's send it. But honestly here, how do we redefine that Mazer moment? How do we? Can we just mean it's a good thing now?
Breath of air finally, in fact, is Elevate really, they had us going for a while, then, what is it, you know that they had us in the first half, not gonna lie, They took their feet off the pedal for a little while. I want to take a look at the leaderboards and see by how much this was, because they did find second place. And as it turns out, it was actually by a pretty healthy margin. 5 points over 9 lives. Oy, oy, oy. What
Yo,
is
that's
the difference
crazy.
here?
That's crazy
Yeah.
because 9 Lives came into that final game with 31 points. So they did everything they could by full sending in game number 6 to make a play for the top of the leaderboard. And wow, incredibly close. And all those eliminations that Elevate was able to pick off kind of from that outer area instead of pushing into the buildings and hanging on the fence line once again, it was congratulations to them because it was enough. But Redeem, Low Slicks, Pen 5, 9 Lives have accumulated some well-needed points that they can carry on throughout the journey of these 4 preseason qualifiers to hopefully earn themselves a coveted ticket to Pro League.
I mean, this is very impressive from 9 Lives because they basically played that last game perfectly. It was like the start that we saw them have before that ultimately got cut short. But this time, they just took it all the way to the end game. Perhaps a few more kills go their way, but you really can't find fault with what they did. I think they've certainly got a lot to be proud of. And Elevate, as you said, oh my lord, the stress that comes off of your back knowing that you're at least going to be able to play in the upcoming Pro League. And now, preparing for that, getting involved in Pro League scrims. This is an Elevate that I am excited to see in Pro League. And you know what? Let's bring it back to us because it's time for us to thank everybody for tuning in and look forward to the qualifiers that have yet to come. This was just the first of 4, Tiff.
I mean, we were blessed with all the action and everything was so incredibly close. I can only imagine what is to come for the rest of the qualifiers that remain. And you're right, it is just getting started. The ALGS is back. And honestly, I've got a really good feeling about year 4, Dia.
It is going to be fantastic, and much of it will be found here at Versus, who power not just the preseason qualifier broadcasts, but the Challenger Circuit broadcasts throughout. So be sure to hit whatever it is, follow, subscribe, whatever platform you are watching this on, because Versus will continue to bring you the challengers of this year of Apex Legends, and in this particular case, the next 3. Those that will ultimately go on to Pro Leagues. Thank you everyone so much for tuning in. Tiff, thank you for joining me. I'm going to say a hearty good night, and we will catch you during the next preseason qualifiers here on Versus.